Chapter 725. After the matter of the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor accepting a disciple concluded, the people of the royal sacred region fell into a frenzy of cultivation. After personally witnessing the heaven-defying might, the hearts of millions and millions of people grew even more fervent. The sacred royal city was the core region of the royal sacred region. In fact, many people even started to join the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Right now, the Medicine Sovereign Valley was openly accepting disciples and had already declared that they would be on equal footing with the royal sacred sect. The news of the battle back then had already circulated, and the Medicine Sovereign Valley wasn't inferior to the royal sacred sect at all. And in addition to the news of Zai Xian helping the immortal cultivators to abduct young girls, the reputation of the royal sacred sect had long been tainted. However, there were still many rumors regarding Qin Wentian circulating around the royal sacred region. Qin Wentian had almost obtained the favor of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor and was accepted as a disciple. However, the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor discovered that Qin Wentian's character was lacking, hence he rejected him. Qin Wentian was a sinister and cunning man, even the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor looked down on him, abandoning him because of his character. This matter caused quite a commotion in the Holy Royal City. Many people were discussing it. After all, they had clearly seen what had happened in the Celestial Land Immortal Palace. This explanation made sense. For a period of time, Qin Wentian's reputation was doubted by many. However, with regards to this, Qin Wentian didn't reply at all. There were also people who said that Qin Wentian was humiliated in the Immortal Palace and was probably thinking of revenge now. However, those were supreme existences of the immortal realms. Especially so for Qin Wentian, how could he take revenge? The royal sacred sect naturally fanned the flames and fanned the flames. Regardless of the Medicine Sovereign Valley or Qin Wentian himself, they couldn't be bothered to care. Ever since the Dongsheng Heaven Emperor accepted a disciple, Qin Wentian had never appeared in the outside world again. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed. In a certain illusory location in the royal sacred region, a majestic immortal palace flickered in and out of existence. It was as though it could melt into the void, disappearing and reappearing occasionally. Once, there were supreme existences who used their perception to scan the entire royal sacred region. Before this, they discovered something, but when their perception probed further, they discovered nothing at all. Hence, they didn't probe any further. After all, his perception could encompass an entire particle world, and countless images were imprinted into his mind. There was simply too much information, and it was very normal for mistakes to occur occasionally. However, if one were to sense it up close, they would discover that there seemed to be a mysterious ripple around the immortal palace. It seemed to be sealing the space around the immortal palace, making it seem as if the space here did not exist. In this celestial palace, Di Tian's figure sat cross-legged on a slope. Above him floated a dazzling painting scroll. It was mysterious, unfathomable, and difficult to understand. Di Tian's entire being seemed to be immersed within. In the painting, numerous runic lights cascaded downwards, unceasingly surrounding Di Tian, or even directly entering his body. The runic lights were ever-changing, as though there were millions upon millions of transformations within it. It was truly unfathomable. At this moment, Di Tian waved his hands in the painting scroll. Instantly, an intense runic imprint appeared, transforming into a mysterious and unfathomable energy that was extremely wondrous. How difficult! It's been so long, but there's basically no way for me to completely comprehend it. It feels like I just entered this vast sealed world, Di Tian mused. He only had a year's time. Even if he passed the test and reached this place, as long as he couldn't comprehend it within a year's time, his memories of entering this immortal palace would be erased, and he would be expelled from this place. The flowing light in this painting scroll is like divine inscriptions, with a myriad of transformations, combining together to form a wondrous energy. Di Tian stared at the sky as he continued to work hard in his comprehension. As his cultivation base grew stronger, his ability to comprehend divine inscriptions also grew stronger. Back then, when he was cultivating the spiritual refinement method, the feeling he got from cultivating it grew even more intense. The spiritual refinement method allowed the astral energy in one's body to transform into divine energy. Each grain of divine energy was a divine imprint. For example, the palm imprint divine energy could transform into a palm imprint when attacking, the sword divine energy could transform into a sharp sword when attacking. Such an attack was extremely similar to innate techniques. It was as though innate techniques were a type of transformation of divine inscriptions, borrowing the power of attributes. Astral souls were able to give wuxiu additional attributes, force attribute, dream attribute, wind-fire attribute, lightning attribute, and so on. The moment he stepped onto the path of cultivation, the tiny astral being had given him a memory of the spiritual refinement method. From this, one could see how important this technique was. Divine inscriptions could be used in combat, and could also be used to inscribe formations. Regardless of whether it was combat divine inscriptions or inscribing formations, they all had the same effect as innate techniques. It was as though they originated from the same source, and were a type of utilization of the energy of heaven and earth, as well as one's own attributes. The only difference was that they were utilized in different directions. And now, the energy within this mysterious and powerful painting, that boundless runic light, was also a type of divine inscription. Sealing isn't any different from other types of energy. It's just a type of attribute, just like wind, fire, and lightning. Now that I have a sealing astral soul, I naturally have the ability to seal attributes. As long as I unravel the mysteries of these runic lights, I would be able to comprehend the secrets of this painting. Qin Wentian mused. Di Tian sank into contemplation as he thought, the reason why seals are so powerful is because other than elemental energy, they also borrowed the energy of heaven and earth. It's just like formations, extremely complicated. If I were to go from simple to complex, I would finally be able to comprehend it. As he thought of this, Di Tian started to re-examine the painting, starting to ponder and comprehend it from a different angle. Time flowed by unknowingly. It was so in the immortal palace, and it was the same in the external world as well. In the medicine's sovereign valley, Qin Wentian had never stopped cultivating. After stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm, he could already feel the difficulty of his cultivation. Right now, for every step he wanted to take, other than absorbing and refining a vast amount of astral energy, he also needed to comprehend the energy of his true intent, as well as the power of his constellation. The deeper his comprehension of his true intent, the more perfect his constellation would be. Right now, Qin Wentian's original body had already comprehended his third and fourth constellation. The first constellation was known as the Dreamworld constellation, born from his great dream's astral soul. It was a domain-type constellation that could pull people into a trance, unable to extricate themselves from it. The space within the constellation was filled with destructive energy that was infused with true intent. The second constellation was known as the Slaughter Sword constellation, born from his sword-type astral soul. It contained an extremely powerful destructive might, capable of annihilating everything. The third constellation was known as the Summon constellation, born from his demon's sovereign astral soul. It was able to summon extremely powerful demonic beasts for battle. The fourth constellation was known as the Suppression Annihilation constellation, born from his fifth astral soul, the Suppression astral soul. This was the last constellation he had comprehended, and it contained an unfathomable might. After comprehending his fourth constellation, the only remaining constellation that Qin Wentian hadn't condensed was the Heavenly Hammer astral soul. It wasn't that he couldn't condense it, it was just that from Qin Wentian's perspective, having 4 constellations was already sufficient. Even if he tried to condense another constellation using his Heavenly Hammer astral soul, it wouldn't have any effect on his combat prowess. Other than comprehending his fourth constellation, Qin Wentian also spent quite a bit of time on other aspects of his cultivation. He didn't even think about the matter of the Dongxing Heaven Emperor accepting a disciple back then, nor did he have the energy to care about the gossip in the outside world. This was a world where strength was revered. When he was suppressed by others, everyone would despise him. But when he stood at an unprecedented height, the people of the world would only prostrate themselves in worship. You finally know how to rest. A beautiful silhouette walked towards Qin Wentian with a gentle smile on her face. Let me loosen my muscles a little. Qin Wendian walked to Mo Qingqing's side, wrapping his arms around her slender waist as an expression of enjoyment appeared on his face. Lecher. Mo Qingqing's lips twitched. So what if I'm a lecher? Qin Wendian hugged her even tighter. Mo Qingqing leaned into Qin Wendian's embrace as she spoke in a gentle voice. Many people in the outside world are talking about you. There are even people saying that you have gone to the immortal realms. It has been such a long time since you last appeared. Let them say whatever they want. In any case, I already plan to head to the immortal realms. Qin Wendian casually spoke. Ever since he knew that the royal sacred region was a particle world, a country bumpkin world, Qin Wendian had always wanted to go out and see how vast the immortal realms truly were. A true man's ambition was to roam the world. Let alone the fact that he still had the unknown mission of his parents, he still had to find Qing-er. No matter what, he had to go out. Can you bring me along with you? Mo Qingqing inclined her head and stared at Qin Wendian. Her gaze seemed to be able to melt everything. She was truly worried. The immortal realms, to her, seemed to be too far away. Silly lass. Qin Wendian lightly kissed Mo Qingqing's forehead. After that, he spoke, let's go out for a walk. Sure. Mo Qingqing nodded. Qin Wendian pulled her hand as their silhouettes flashed, heading towards the exit of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, not alerting anyone else. Taking a stroll in the sacred royal city, breathing in the fresh air, Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing were like ordinary people holding hands as they walked. Many people involuntarily turned their gazes over. There was no other reason, these two were simply too stunning. Qin Wendian's demeanor and Mo Qingqing's beauty. In addition, how many people in the royal sacred region didn't know of Qin Wendian? Back then in the immortal palace in the sky, everyone in the world had seen him before. Many people were already whispering to each other, this must be Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing is truly very beautiful. To think that Qin Wendian is still in the sacred royal city. Back then, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor abandoned him. I wonder if it was because of his character or his talent. It's rumored that back then when Qin Wendian was humiliated, he went into closed-door seclusion for half a year. Seems like his mood isn't bad at all. Speaking of which, Qin Wendian is also a character exuding magnificence throughout the generations. In the entire royal sacred region, there aren't many who can compare to him. He can even contend against the geniuses of the immortal realms. The voices of many drifted into Qin Wendian's perception, causing Qin Wendian to smile bitterly in his heart. It wasn't a good thing to be too famous. It was just that he couldn't even take a walk in peace. Chapter 726. Seems like I really have to leave. Qin Wendian sighed in his heart. Although the royal sacred region was boundlessly vast, to the current him, it had already restricted his growth. It was still better for him to head to the immortal realms. In the past, Qin Wendian had never thought of leaving so early. Most probably, this thought appeared in his mind because of the commotion caused by the Eastern Sage Immortal Sect's disciple recruitment. At this moment, Qin Wendian turned his gaze towards the horizons only to hear rumbling sounds in that direction. The powerful fluctuations of astral energy had no way to hide from his perception as several people rushed over in that direction. At this moment, Qin Wendian furrowed his brows. He pulled Mo Qingqing's hand and moved forward. An instant later, they arrived at the origin of the fluctuations. This place was a flourishing place with inns in great numbers. However, right now, the buildings had all collapsed and many inns were reduced to rubble. Many people stood in the surroundings as they observed. Up ahead, several experts were currently fighting. The resplendent constellations caused people to sigh in admiration. The constellations of celestial phenomenon ascendants were truly wondrous, containing terrifying might. Senior Lin Shui, Sister Ling Shuang. Qin Wendian stared at the people fighting. He was actually acquainted with a few of them. Lin Shui, Lu Bingyu, Ji Feishue, and Yiling Shuang. As for those fighting against them, the vast majority of them were experts proficient in the mandate of thunder and earth. Compared to those from the Battle Sword sect, they had the advantage in terms of numbers. Also, the ages of both sides weren't very old, many of them were young. The 9 great sects are fighting again. During this past year, the conflicts between the various sects seem to be intentionally or unintentionally targeting the Battle Sword sect. Seems like it's true that the Royal Sacred Sect is ostracizing the Battle Sword faction. Someone's voice drifted into Qin Wentian's ears, causing him to furrow his brows. Back then when Zai Qiu killed Qin, he had already formed a grudge with the Battle Sword faction. But as a subsidiary sect of the Royal Sacred Sect, the Battle Sword faction had no choice but to swallow their anger. But it didn't mean that it was useless for them to swallow their anger. Regardless of the Battle Sword faction within the Royal Sacred Sect, or the Battle Sword sect which was one of the 9 great sects outside the Royal Sacred Sect, they were all being ostracized by the other factions. However, the people of the Battle Sword faction were truly intelligent. The upper echelons of the Battle Sword faction had never truly clashed with the core members of the Royal Sacred Sect. None of them betrayed the Battle Sword faction, choosing to endure and endure. The Royal Sacred Sect already had their eyes on them, and who knew when they would act against them? How could they not endure? Among the combatants, Yiling Shuang from the Battle Sword sect was one of the weaker ones. An expert from the Violet Thunder sect was steadily suppressing her. His palms manifested the power of lightning as he laughed. The people of the Battle Sword sect are truly loyal. Yiling Shuang's father, Yi Qingyun, has already publicly declared war against the Royal Sacred Sect. We want to capture this lass, but you guys are actually still protecting her. Are you not afraid that the Royal Sacred Sect will blame us for this? That's a matter of the father's generation. Do you want to push this debt onto junior apprentice sister Yiling Shuang? Ji Feishue coldly snorted. In truth, Yiling Shuang had long left the Battle Sword sect and followed her father to Yi. It was just that recently, there would often be experts appearing in Yi. Yiling Shuang wanted to pay a visit to the Medicine Sovereign Valley and coincidentally met Lin Shuai and the others who were also in the Sacred Royal City. Hence, they decided to head over together. The group of them gathered together only to be provoked by those from the Violet Thunder sect and Great Earth sect. A son must pay his father's debts, it's the same for a daughter. That person had a teasing look in his eyes as he stared at Yiling Shuang. However, given how sexy Yiling Shuang is, I really can't bear to kill her directly. You are shameless. Yiling Shuang icily replied. Ha, there's something even more shameless. That person's palms danced with lightning as he slowly walked towards Yiling Shuang. Lin Shuai and the other experts were all restricted, they had no way to save Yiling Shuang. At this moment, a beam of sword chi swept over with a speed even faster than lightning. Who is it? That person abruptly turned around. A terrifying sword whistled through the air, causing sonic booms to erupt. The terrifying sharp sword brought with it a destructive force as it slashed over. That person's hands danced about as the power of thunder exploded forth. However, the sharp sword slashed down, directly penetrating the head of that person, killing him. This scene caused many who were in combat to halt. Their gazes turned over only to see 2 silhouettes exuding magnificence through the generations stepping through the air. Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the appearance of these two, the countenances of many turned cold. Has the Battle Sword sect already colluded with the enemy of the Royal Sacred Sect, Qin Wentian? An expert from the Great Earth sect coldly spoke as he stared at Lin Shuai. I've long left the Battle Sword sect, the matters of the Battle Sword sect have nothing to do with me. It's just that Yiling Shuang is my foster sister, you guys actually dared to bully her. You all deserve death. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, a surge of killing intent gushed forth. The Royal Sacred Sect seemed to be finding an excuse to deal with the Battle Sword sect. He naturally wanted to draw a clear line between him and the Battle Sword sect. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect and Great Earth sect all had trepidation in their eyes when they stared at Qin Wentian. This person's combat prowess was so strong that the core faction of the Royal Sacred Sect didn't dare to accept his challenge. Within the 3rd level of Celestial Phenomenon, there was no one who could be his opponent. And right now, the strongest among them was only at the 3rd level of Celestial Phenomenon. Let alone the fact that Qin Wentian had the backing of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Back then you were humiliated in the Immortal Palace, yet you still dare to be so arrogant? The Royal Sacred Sect will definitely hunt you down. A person coldly spoke. Do you guys have the qualifications to enter the Immortal Palace? A mocking expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face. After which, he released his dream world constellation and swept his gaze over everyone. In an instant, the experts on the other side all felt as though they had entered a domain of their own. Qin Wentian, you. That expert from the Great Earth Sect roared in rage. He didn't expect that Qin Wentian would directly act, using a domain-type constellation to trap them within. Anyone who dares to touch my family and friends will be killed without mercy. Qin Wentian coldly snorted. It was unknown if he was speaking to these people or to the entire Royal Sacred Sect. As the sound of his voice faded, a second constellation manifested as countless terrifying sharp swords descended from the constellation, suppressing everything in its path. No! A person screamed miserably. Before the sword could kill him, that supreme suppressive sword might had already descended, directly causing his body to disintegrate. After that, fresh blood gushed out as his body was torn apart. Slaughter! Qin Wentian roared, ignoring all defenses. Instantly, numerous silhouettes died one after another, and in the blink of an eye, only a few remained. They were all using their own powerful constellations to defend against the attacks. As for that third-level ascendant from the Great Earth Sect, his body was clad in an armor of flowing light, as a screen of light enveloped him within. Humph! Qin Wentian snorted. With an intention of his will, numerous terrifying gigantic swords manifested from his constellation, directly slamming into his surroundings. After which, a surge of destructive energy gushed forth, tearing apart the flowing light armor. The experts inside all had looks of terror on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian in terror. No! Accompanied by a fearful roar, the sword chi slammed down and tore him apart. For those who were still alive, their bodies trembled unceasingly because of the intense terror. But very swiftly, they too followed the footsteps of the others, directly slain by the sword chi. Qin Wentian waved his hand as the resplendent constellation directly vanished into thin air. However, the people in the surroundings were all stunned speechless. How powerful, was this the strength of the young man exuding magnificence throughout the generations in the Royal Sacred Region? Not only that, he didn't even use his full strength. With a wave of his hand, he killed everyone with his constellation. It was as though the constellations of his opponents couldn't even withstand a single strike from him. It's rumored that after stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm, because of the different constellations condensed, the disparity in combat prowess would be greatly widened. Seems like this rumor is true. Qin Wentian didn't even need to use his true strength. Just by relying on his constellation, he was able to kill everyone including those 2 levels higher than him. This is simply too powerful. This is the disparity between a supreme genius and an ordinary genius, there's no way to make up for it. Someone mused. Only now did they understand that no matter what happened to Qin Wentian back then in the Immortal Palace, his opponents were all supreme existences of the immortal realms. Even if Qin Wentian was truly humiliated, in the Royal Sacred Region, no matter where he went, he would still be a character that radiated boundless radiance. There was no one in the same generation who could contend against him. Wentian, awesome! Lin Shuai praised. He was also a Heaven's Chosen and had a resounding reputation in the Royal Sacred Region. However, this young man before him was simply too outstanding, directly overshadowing his magnificence. Lu Bingyu had broken through to celestial phenomenon not long ago, but when she saw the might of Qin Wentian, she couldn't help but feel complicated in her heart. Her clear eyes stared at Qin Wentian's face. Senior brother Lin Shuai, how's the Battle Sword Sect? Qin Wentian transmitted his voice to Lin Shuai. Upon hearing his question, Lin Shuai furrowed his brows as he replied, right now, the Royal Sacred Sect is moving about frequently. I keep having a bad premonition that something major is about to happen. Maybe, the Royal Sacred Sect didn't act because they lacked an excuse. But if they really want to deal with the Battle Sword sect, they can just directly accuse us of a crime. Qin Wentian nodded his head in agreement. If the Royal Sacred Sect really wanted to deal with the Battle Sword sect, there was no need for an excuse. In any case, the Royal Sacred Sect had already fallen from the status of a divine detective, their reputation was damaged. What they truly wanted now was to recover their strength to the point where no one could contend against them. Only then would they be able to dominate the world. The Medicine Sovereign Valley blocked the path of the Royal Sacred Sect. If the Royal Sacred Sect made a move, they would definitely want to destroy the Medicine Sovereign Valley the most. During this half a year, the Royal Sacred Sect didn't make any big moves. Although the Sacred Royal City seems calm, there's a high possibility that they are preparing in the dark. Lin Shuai transmitted his voice again. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he asked, in that case, does the Old Ancestor and the Battle Sword Sect have any plans? The Royal Sacred Sect is keeping a tight watch on the Battle Sword Sect, there's no way for them to act recklessly. It's even more impossible for them to leave the Royal Sacred Sect directly. They are stuck in a dilemma, we can only endure and resign ourselves to fate. They intend to get us to pay our respects to Senior Medicine Sovereign and ask him to send us out of the Royal Sacred Region. Lin Shuai replied, his words causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble. Seems like the Battle Sword Sect was already preparing a path of retreat. Chapter 727. In the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Qin Wentian and the rest slowly walked over, directly heading towards the palace where the Medicine Sovereign resided in. Right now, the Medicine Sovereign Valley had recruited many geniuses from the Royal Sacred Region and was flourishing. When they saw Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng, their eyes all shone with a bright light. Although they had joined the Medicine Sovereign Valley, there weren't many chances for them to see the two of them personally. That seems to be Lin Shuai, Ji Feishue, and Lu Bingyu. Why are they here as well? Someone had a puzzled expression on his face as he stared at the group flying through the air. Although the Battle Sword Sect had a close relationship with Qin Wentian, the Battle Sword Sect was still considered a subsidiary power of the Royal Sacred Sect, and the Medicine Sovereign Valley stood in opposition to the Royal Sacred Sect. Even if it was to avoid arousing suspicion, the people from the Battle Sword Sect shouldn't have come here. In fact, Qin Wentian had already considered this point. But after hearing Lin Shuai's words, he no longer hesitated. The Royal Sacred Sect had already started to monitor the Battle Sword Sect, and it was only a matter of time before they made their move against the Battle Sword faction. It didn't matter if they avoided arousing suspicion or not. Their silhouettes stopped in the courtyard outside the Medicine Sovereign's palace as they stood there quietly. An instant later, the Medicine Sovereign walked out from his room. The commotion outside couldn't be hidden from him. You're finally willing to come out. The Medicine Sovereign stroked his beard as he smiled at Qin Wentian. It's been a long time since I paid a visit to Senior. Qin Wentian laughed. The Medicine Sovereign glanced at Lin Shuai and the rest as a smile that was not a smile appeared on his face. I've helped you raise those two little fellows for so long, yet you still haven't come to bring them away. You must have something you need me for, right? Little Rascal and Purgatory would only be able to grow better under Senior's care. Qin Wentian awkwardly laughed. Stop flattering me. The last time I went out, my pill furnace was completely destroyed by that little bastard. Yet, it directly fell asleep and wouldn't wake up even if it fell onto the ground. As the Medicine Sovereign spoke, he waved his hand. An instant later, a snow-white puppy appeared in his hand. The body of this puppy shone with an indistinct golden light, as though it was in a deep sleep. Seeing how the Medicine Sovereign was fuming with rage as he grabbed Little Rascal's tail and swung it back and forth, Qin Wentian couldn't help but perspire. This old man's desire for revenge was truly too strong. Little Rascal just needs to be taught a lesson. With Senior taking care of him, I can be at ease. Qin Wentian could only smile when he saw the depressed expression on the Medicine Sovereign's face. At this moment, a beam of multicolored light flashed as the cry of a vermilion bird rang out. From the roof of the Medicine Sovereign's room, a resplendent demonic beast could be seen flying over. Its body shone with resplendent multicolored light, and upon seeing Qin Wentian, joy could be seen in its eyes. Its body revolved above Qin Wentian, and its beak would occasionally peck at Qin Wentian. "Don't worry, I won't stop worrying." The medicine sovereign blew on his beard. With a flick of his hand, little rascal was directly flung onto the ground. However, it was still sleeping peacefully, as though nothing could disturb its sleep. "Speak, what's the matter?" the medicine sovereign asked. "Senior medicine sovereign, the royal sacred sect has already started to monitor our battle sword sect and Yi country." Lin Shui spoke. "Master and ancestor initially wanted to ask Senior to send us out of the royal sacred region. But Junior wishes to consult Senior. Do you have any methods to resolve this?" The medicine sovereign furrowed his brows. As expected, the royal sacred sect wouldn't let this matter rest so easily. This concerned whether they could control a particle world or not. Those sacred emperors who walked out of the royal sacred region would definitely not allow other powers to threaten their position. Seems like the royal sacred sect was preparing to act. "Master!" Mo Qingqing called out. The medicine sovereign glanced at his disciple as he spoke. "Lass, why don't you side with that fellow Qin Wentian now?" "Master, this also concerns our medicine sovereign valley. I'm afraid the royal sacred sect wants to deal with us the most." Mo Qingqing spoke. "That's true. Things are going to be troublesome." The medicine sovereign furrowed his brows, as though he was worried. The royal sacred sect has already controlled this world for tens of thousands of years. Although there weren't many who managed to break through to the immortal ranked realm, there were still a few generations of sacred emperors who managed to do so. The royal sacred sect was defeated in the previous battle, and they would definitely not let this matter rest so easily. This generation's sacred emperor knows that he has no way to deal with the immortal ranked puppet and me. Hence, he would definitely invite the previous sacred emperors to return to the royal sacred sect. "Senior, what should we do?" Qin Wentian asked. "What do you think?" the medicine sovereign counter-asked. "Now that things have come to this, the royal sacred region can no longer contain two hegemonic powers. One of them will definitely be destroyed. We can only start a war now." Qin Wentian spoke, his words causing the others to fall silent. Were they really going to start a war against the royal sacred sect? In the previous battle, we used the puppets to fight against the experts of the royal sacred sect and obtained victory. But in reality, the number of experts sent out by the royal sacred sect was still too little. If the entire royal sacred sect mobilized their full strength, we would definitely be in an awkward situation. And once the two generations of sacred emperors appear, the upper echelons of the royal sacred sect would be at a disadvantage. The medicine sovereign's words caused everyone to feel a sense of pressure. After which, he turned to Qin Wentian and the others and continued, "The best solution is for me to send all of you away before the royal sacred sect acts. Can the Xuanwu puppets contend against the sacred emperors?" Qin Wentian furrowed his brows. At this moment, his thoughts of leaving had actually dimmed a little. Since the situation wasn't resolved, he could leave with a clear conscience. Although the Xuanwu puppets are immortal ranked puppets and can sweep through those below the immortal realm, they can only defend against the sacred emperors. There's no way they can suppress the sacred emperors, they would only be in a passive situation. The medicine sovereign spoke. "The previous generation sacred emperor hasn't returned yet, right?" Qin Wentian asked in a low voice. "I don't think so. But since the royal sacred sect has already made their move, they would most probably return soon." The medicine sovereign replied. "Before that, let's strengthen ourselves first and save the battle sword faction as well as the country of Yi, making them stand on our side. How about it?" Qin Wentian stared at the medicine sovereign. Given the actions of the royal sacred sect, they most probably wouldn't spare the battle sword faction and the country of Yi. They had to start a war before the royal sacred sect acted. The medicine sovereign stared at Qin Wentian as a faint smile appeared in his eyes. "You are truly audacious. We don't have any other choice. Since the war is going to start sooner or later, why don't we take the initiative?" Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. There was no other way out. Senior Lin Shuai and the rest are already here. If we delay any longer, I'm afraid the Royal Sacred Sect would make their move earlier than expected. The Medicine Sovereign stared at Qin Wentian as he stroked his beard. After which, he smiled, "Fine, I will listen to you. Who asked this old man to owe you? However, everything is up to you. No matter what the consequences are, don't regret it." "Many thanks, Medicine Sovereign." Qin Wentian saw the Medicine Sovereign nodding his head in agreement. "When do we act? You already said that we have to make use of our time. Let's do it now. I will gather my men and set off now. You should come along as well." The Medicine Sovereign laughed. After which, a terrifying aura enveloped the entire Medicine Sovereign Valley. An instant later, the experts of the Medicine Sovereign Valley all moved towards a certain direction. The guesses of the Medicine Sovereign and Qin Wentian weren't wrong. Right now, the Royal Sacred Sect had already gathered the experts of the 9 great sections. Even the experts from the Violet Thunder Sect and Great Earth Sect were all gathered in the Sacred Royal City. This was why the scene of the Violet Thunder Sect and Great Earth Sect ganging up on Lin Shuai and the rest appeared. The news of Qin Wentian appearing once again, protecting Lin Shuai and the rest, and killing the experts from the Violet Thunder Sect and Great Earth Sect soon spread to the Royal Sacred Sect. In a great hall of the core faction, all the upper echelons of the Royal Sacred Sect were gathered here. Even the Sacred Prince Zai Xian was present. Lin Shuai, Ji Feishue, and the rest have colluded with Qin Wentian and entered the Medicine Sovereign Valley. "Everyone, what do you think we should do?" An expert of virtue and prestige asked. He was the vice-sect leader of the core faction, Sovereign Yen. He had great authority and was extremely powerful. "I'm afraid the Battle Sword Sect has already betrayed us. It's about time for us to clean up the sect." The leader of the Violet Thunder Sect, who was also the vice-sect leader of the Royal Sacred Sect, replied. "Indeed, it's about time to act. If we delay any longer, there might be unforeseen circumstances." The leader of the Grand Shang faction agreed. His eyes were cold as his killing intent intensified. The old Sacred Emperor has already sent word that he would bring people here to destroy the Medicine Sovereign Valley within a month. But now that there are traitors among us, it's indeed about time to clean them up. Zai Yan's countenance was cold. They had always been waiting for the old Sacred Emperor to arrive. Only then would they be able to sweep through the Medicine Sovereign Valley, killing the traitors. But now, it seemed that the time had to be brought forward. "You guys immediately return and gather your subordinates. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, we will surround the Battle Sword Sect and clean up the traitors." Zai Yan stood up, his countenance was as cold as ice. "Yes. Roger." The eyes of many flickered with excitement. They had long wanted to get rid of the Battle Sword faction. Now that the upper echelons had made up their minds, they might as well wipe out the Battle Sword faction in one fell swoop. Right now, the atmosphere in the Battle Sword faction was extremely stifling. They naturally discovered that the Royal Sacred Sect had already started to monitor them. This caused them to be extremely disappointed. Back then, Quin's death was because Zai Qiu had let them down, killing a genius of their faction. They knew that there was no way for them to seek justice and could only endure it. However, because of this, the core faction also bore a grudge against them. In addition to the fact that Qin Wentian was from the Battle Sword Sect, he didn't care about the face of the Royal Sacred Sect at all, causing them to lose all face. The Royal Sacred Sect would make a move against them sooner or later. This was something they knew very well in their hearts. At this moment, in one of the pavilions of the Battle Sword faction, the eyes of the old ancestor of the Battle Sword Sect abruptly opened. He could sense that more and more people were approaching, surrounding them. His aged eyes flickered with an intense sense of sorrow. Was the Royal Sacred Sect finally going to act against them? Bzzz, bzzz, bzzz. Numerous terrifying auras gushed over, sweeping through the buildings of the Battle Sword faction. At this instant, the people of the battle sword faction all inclined their heads, their countenances incredibly unsightly to behold. Suitsang. A voice thundered through the air, like thunder from a clear sky, directly calling out the name of the old ancestor of the battle sword faction. Suitsang was none other than the old ancestor of the battle sword faction. At this moment, he soared up into the air and stared at the silhouettes surrounding them as he coldly asked, Suitsang, have never done anything that let down the royal sacred sect. But in the end, the royal sacred sect still wants to annihilate us. Such inhumanity, aren't you afraid of being despised by the entire world? The old ancestor straightened his back, he didn't argue or beg for mercy. Even if he had to die, he would die standing. The battle sword faction has colluded with the enemy of the royal sacred sect, the Medicine Sovereign Valley, yet you still dare to boast so shamelessly. Suitsang, on account of the fact that you are the vice-sect leader of our royal sacred sect, we don't wish to massacre you all. Just commit suicide yourselves. For those below the heavenly Dipper realm, we can spare your lives. Ziyan's voice was cold, his words causing a look of sorrow to appear on Suitsang's face. For those below the heavenly Dipper realm? How many of them would be able to survive? Chapter 728. The experts of the battle sword sect gradually gathered. When they heard Ziyan's words, their countenances all turned pale. Those at the heavenly Dipper realm and above would all be executed. How cruel was this? The royal sacred sect is truly ridiculous. Someone's eyes turned red as he roared, we have yet to do anything that would let down our sect, yet they want to annihilate all of us? How cruel. After we die, let's see how long the royal sacred sect can last. Are you guys not prepared to commit suicide? Since this is the case, let's kill all of you without mercy. Ziyan's eyes were cold, he had no emotions at all. The reason why the royal sacred sect gathered the 9 great sects was to make it easier for them to rule the world. But if there were any sects that threatened the royal sacred sect and didn't listen to them, they naturally had to find a way to support other powers. Commit suicide? Why don't they just get the sacred emperor to act? Wouldn't it be much easier to kill us? Suitsang's heart was cold, he knew that there was only one option left. Why is there a need to trouble the sacred emperor for such a trivial matter? Ziyan lifted his palm as his voice thundered through the air. The royal sacred sect has decreed that the battle sword sect has colluded with the enemy and betrayed the sect. All of you shall be executed. Kill. Kill, kill, kill. The sound waves of killing intent shook the heavens and earth. After which, countless experts stepped out, slaughtering their way into the battle sword sect, surrounding them from all directions. Their auras were so powerful that they could destroy everything. The experts of the Violet Thunder sect gathered in one direction. Violet light illuminated the skies as a gigantic violet sword over 10,000 meters in length appeared in the air, exuding an incomparably violent destructive might. The elders of the Violet Thunder sect personally infused their astral energy into this sword. Upon sensing the violent aura, Suitsang abruptly turned his gaze over as he roared in rage, 9 Thunder, you will die a horrible death. 9 Thunder was the leader of the Violet Thunder sect, the vice-sect leader of the Royal Sacred Sect. His robes were all embroidered with lightning diagrams, and his eyes gleamed with the power of lightning. He waved his hands as he coldly laughed, you guys won't be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs. The 10,000-meter-long gigantic lightning sword slashed down, causing rumbling sounds of destruction to echo out unceasingly, wanting to destroy everything. The spectators below were all horrified. Everywhere the gigantic sword passed by, everything was destroyed. Many experts from the battle sword sect were directly torn apart into nothingness. The violet gigantic sword slammed into the territory of the battle sword faction, causing the earth to split apart. It was unknown how many experts died instantly, causing the eyes of those from the battle sword faction to turn red as their killing intent towered up into the sky. But at this moment, they were already too busy to even care about themselves. The experts from the various factions of the Royal Sacred Sect had already surrounded them. The number of experts was more than 10 to 1, and when they pressed down, it would definitely be a devastating blow to the battle sword faction. Suitsang. A cold voice drifted over. The old ancestor of the battle sword sect, Suitsang, inclined his head only to see a golden eye in the air. A resplendent golden constellation manifested, as though there were countless pupils within. Shangying. Suitsang stared at the sky with his sword in hand. His surroundings seemed to have transformed into a sword domain. Shangying was the old emperor of Grand Shang. After he abdicated, he came to the royal sacred sect to take up the position of vice sect leader. He spent most of his time peacefully cultivating, trying to break through to the sacred emperor realm. The battle sword faction will be annihilated for sure. Shangying coldly spoke. His golden eyes shone with a boundless light, capable of tearing apart everything. At this instant, Suitsang's entire being was immersed in a golden world of eye techniques, struggling within. Break! Suitsang coldly snorted. His sword slashed out, arcing through the heavens and earth. Many of the golden eyes in the air were directly shattered as the two of them engaged in a fierce battle. Although Suitsang could contend against Shangying, what about the other members of the battle sword faction? This wasn't a battle on the same level. However, at this moment, a terrifying will gushed over from afar, cascading down onto the ground. After which, an aged voice filled with rage rang out, the royal sacred sect even annihilated their own subordinate powers. How cruel and merciless. No wonder the sacred prince Sai Xian would do something as infuriating as capturing young maidens from the royal sacred region. This voice drifted down from the heavens, causing the countenances of those present to freeze. Their eyes involuntarily narrowed as they stared in the direction of the voice. Medicine Sovereign, what has the internal affairs of my royal sacred sect got to do with you? Within the royal sacred sect, a terrifying will gushed over, causing the experts of the royal sacred sect to tremble. It was none other than the sacred emperor. Evidently, the sacred emperor had sensed the arrival of the medicine sovereign. Both of them had already reached that level of cultivation, their senses were naturally stronger than anyone else. The royal sacred sect proclaims themselves to be the hegemon of this world, yet they actually dared to commit such an atrocious act. As a member of the royal sacred region, our medicine sovereign valley has the obligation to interfere. The voice of the medicine sovereign rang out once more. From afar, experts from the medicine sovereign valley could be seen flying over. The puppet in the lead was a powerful Xuanwu puppet with the medicine sovereign and the rest standing on it. The surroundings were also filled with powerful puppets, an army of puppets. The silhouette of the sacred emperor also appeared. Both parties arrived in the air above the territory of the battle sword faction, staring at each other from afar. In that case, how do you want to interfere? The eyes of the sacred emperor were ice cold. A surge of pressure bore down, causing the entire space to feel a stifling pressure. This time around, it wasn't the sacred emperor's immortal sense but his actual self. Tell everyone to leave. The medicine sovereign calmly spoke. Impossible. The sacred emperor directly rejected. Since the royal sacred sect had already started to clean up their sect, how could they let them leave? Especially since the medicine sovereign and the rest were here, they couldn't let them leave. If not, where would the face of the royal sacred sect be? In that case, we can only fight. The medicine sovereign seemed to have long known that the sacred emperor wouldn't agree. How should we fight? If you interfere and deal with the people below, regardless of my royal sacred sect or your medicine sovereign valley, a large number of people would definitely die. The sacred emperor asked. At his and the medicine sovereign's level, killing celestial phenomenon ascendants was as easy as flipping their palms. If the two of them were to deal with the people below, they would be able to kill a large number of them. If that's the case, both their powers might end up in mutual destruction. Before one of us dies, we won't interfere with their battle. The medicine sovereign naturally had his reservations. Both of them didn't wish for everyone in their sect to be killed. In truth, the victor and loser between them was the deciding factor. Naturally, the prerequisite was that they had to kill the other party. If the medicine sovereign died, it would be a doomsday for the medicine sovereign valley. What about that puppet? The sacred emperor pointed to the Xuanwu beneath the medicine sovereign's feet. It won't take the initiative to attack those below you, but it can protect the experts of the medicine sovereign valley. The medicine sovereign replied. Fine, this seat wants to experience the strength of an undying old man like you. The sacred emperor laughed, his tone calm, and there was no hatred in his eyes. It was like he was sparring with old friends. As the two of them spoke, resplendent halos of light revolved around them, illuminating the entire space. Regardless of the sacred emperor or the medicine sovereign, their auras changed completely. They were now true immortals. That immortal halos of light seemed to originate from the bodies of immortals. Boom! A terrifying king chi gushed forth from the sacred emperor as he punched out with his fist. A dazzling beam of immortal light shook the heavens and earth, directly piercing through space, transforming into a terrifying black hole that blasted towards the medicine sovereign. His control over his strength had already reached a perfect level. Although it was incomparably tyrannical, it didn't leak out at all, not wasting any energy at all. The medicine sovereign stabbed out with his finger as a beam of fiery light shot towards the terrifying attack. That beam of fiery light seemed ordinary, but at the instant it came into contact with the attack of the sacred emperor, a destructive aura gushed forth, transforming the entire space into a sea of flames. The medicine sovereign stood in the middle of that resplendent sea of flames, as though he was born from fire. Countless people in the surroundings felt their bodies burning up, their clothes were about to be ignited and their skin showed signs of cracking. They inclined their heads in shock as they stared at the flames in the air. Those were no longer ordinary flames, they were immortal flames. At the level of the sacred emperor and the medicine sovereign, their strength had already transformed to another level. Let's go up and fight, they won't be able to endure the aftershocks. The medicine sovereign spoke. After which, he soared up into the sky as the sacred emperor followed. The two of them directly soared up into the air, and in the blink of an eye, only two streaks of light remained. Faintly, one could see the destructive might cascading down from the sky, resembling streams of fire. Just a single strand of fire was enough to incinerate low-level celestial phenomenon ascendants. Those from the battle sword faction drew in a deep breath, feeling a sense of luck in their hearts. They managed to survive in this desperate situation. If not for the medicine sovereign and the experts from the medicine sovereign valley coming to their aid, the consequences would truly be unimaginable. But even if the experts from the medicine sovereign valley and their puppets arrived, they were still far too few in number when compared to the experts from the royal sacred sect. The royal sacred sect could simply use numbers to overwhelm them. The most powerful of the medicine sovereign valley were their puppets, each of them was at the peak of the immortal realms. But this place was the headquarters of the royal sacred sect, there were simply too many experts here. The experts from the medicine sovereign valley and the battle sword faction still felt immense pressure. Immortal ranked puppets couldn't take the initiative to attack, they were only allowed to defend. This was the agreement between the medicine sovereign and the sacred emperor. Each of them would take a step back, or they would perish together. At this moment, Qin Wentian was in the midst of a great rock puppet. He had long since familiarized himself with the structure of this puppet, and he couldn't help but to sigh in admiration at the grandmaster who created this puppet. Creating a puppet was the most difficult task, the complexity of it even surpassed weaponsmithing. For a powerful puppet, every part of it was akin to a divine weapon, able to unleash immense might. Not only that, the puppet had to be in perfect harmony, allowing the person controlling the puppet to control it. The puppets Qin Wentian saw in the White Deer Institute before paled in comparison to the one he was controlling now. The disparity was simply too great. Within this puppet, there were countless runic formations that could be activated using one's will. It was easy to control, but how much power one could unleash would depend on one's familiarity with the puppet as well as one's control over it. Through the eyes of the golden rock puppet, Qin Wentian stared at the experts of the royal sacred sect. The experts from the various factions should have all arrived. How ruthless, just a little bit more and the battle sword faction would have been destroyed in their hands. Back then, it was Zai Qiu who killed Qin instead of Qin who killed Zai Xian. The royal sacred sect had let down the battle sword faction, causing a grudge to grow in their hearts. Now, they even wanted to eradicate the battle sword faction, the hegemon of this world, tyrannical and tyrannical. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted by, Qin Wentian controlled the great rock puppet to soar up into the clouds. The runic formations on the wings of the golden rock were activated as a terrifying gust of wind tore through the air, rushing towards the experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Nine Thunder's countenance changed when he saw this scene. He stared at the puppet rushing over. A puppet of this level is extremely taxing on Yuan meteor stones. Don't clash head-on with it, let's tie it down and exhaust its energy. If we can destroy it, we will do so. Chapter 729. As the sound of Nine Thunder's voice faded, the golden rock puppet had already rushed over. Its speed was simply too fast, without any sound or presence, faster than the speed of sound, resembling a beam of golden light. Its wings slashed out, sweeping towards the skies. Golden runic light flashed on the wings of the golden rock, wanting to tear apart the heavens. Pucci. An expert at the 5th level of celestial phenomenon didn't even have time to evade. His body was directly slashed apart, dying instantly. Nine Thunder released his constellation, forming a lightning domain of destruction. This entire space seemed to be filled with countless pools of destructive lightning. Crackling sounds could be heard as the power contained within them reached a terrifying extent. This was also the reason why Qin Wentian could only use a puppet to fight. Although he had the ability to jump levels to fight, his cultivation base was after all only at the 1st level of celestial phenomenon. If he fought against peak-level ascendants, he would be easily killed. As the leader of the Violet Thunder sect, Nine Thunder had a cultivation base at the peak of celestial phenomenon. His constellation had already been refined to perfection. Not only did he have a complete astral domain, his destructive might was also extremely terrifying. The area of this lightning domain was simply too vast. There were many experts from the Violet Thunder sect within. All of them unleashed their energy as they stared at the golden rock. Golden light flashed, the body of the golden rock moved again. His wings were like two divine weapons, slicing through the void. Golden light filled the sky, and the pulsating runes on his wings were incomparably resplendent. Countless terrifying runes flickered at the same time, exuding a towering sharpness that seemed capable of slicing through everything. Chi, chi, chi. Experts from the Violet Thunder sect died one after another. The wings of the golden rock were like the wings of a reaper, unstoppable. Kill! Nine Thunder howled in rage. Countless gigantic lightning swords shot out from the lightning pool towards the golden rock controlled by Qin Wentian, suppressing it from all directions, sealing off the golden rock's path of escape. Bzzz. The wings of the golden rock swept out horizontally, causing runes to fill the skies as they collided with the lightning swords, breaking them apart. Attack! Nine Thunder's voice was ice cold. How could the medicine sovereign have such a powerful puppet? If one's strength was weaker, they wouldn't even be able to survive the attacks of the golden rock puppet. The best method of combat was to stay away from it and attack from afar. However, the speed of this golden rock was simply too fast. Hence, he had to personally restrict the speed of the golden rock. One attack after another descended madly, transforming into destructive light that bombarded the flashing golden rock. However, there were only a few attacks that could actually shake the golden rock puppet. Its defensive power was also shockingly strong. It was unknown what material was used to forge it. Even Qin Wentian was wondering where the medicine sovereign got his hands on so many powerful puppets. Only an extremely powerful 6th-ranked puppet grandmaster would be able to create so many peak-tier 5th-ranked puppets. Thunderbolt chain. Nine Thunder coldly roared. Countless thunderbolt chains appeared from the lightning pool, emitting rumbling sounds as they shot towards the golden rock puppet. The chains shone with a towering amount of lightning. If it wasn't a puppet but a stellar martial cultivator instead, the power of the lightning would be sufficient to cause one's entire body to turn numb, causing their resistance to weaken and they would die without a burial. Nine Thunder was indeed a character from the core faction. At this moment, a terrifyingly sharp sword appeared in the claws of the golden rock. Faint blood-colored runes could be seen circulating around the sword as fresh blood dyed the sword crimson. The sword hummed softly as it trembled. Boom! A violent surge of demonic chi abruptly erupted forth as the sword expanded in size, transforming into a gigantic sword 3,000 meters long, radiating boundless demonic chi. The sharp claws of the golden rock puppet clenched onto the sword with immense might before abruptly slashing out. Walala, the chains of lightning were directly severed. The strength of the golden rock puppet, as well as the indomitable sharpness of the demon sword. Even if the demon sword wasn't willing to submit to Qin Wentian and unleash its full power, the sharpness of the sword could still be said to be able to penetrate anything. It's Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian is the one controlling this puppet. Upon seeing the appearance of the demon sword, someone exclaimed. Nine Thunder's eyes flashed with coldness as he stabbed towards the golden rock. The chains were all forcibly severed. The wings of the golden rock flapped once more as the 1,000-meter-long demon sword in its claws swept out frenziedly. Everywhere it passed by, the constellations of experts would be directly slashed apart, causing them to suffer heavy injuries or even die. Bzz. A raging wind gusted by, Qin Wentian dashed towards Nine Thunder. With a flap of his wings, the demon sword stabbed towards the constellation formed by Nine Thunder. After which, with a howl of rage, a terrifying force slashed the demon sword into the constellation formed by Nine Thunder. All get out of here! Nine Thunder roared, a look of madness could be seen in his eyes. As the previous sect leader of the Violet Thunder sect, a leading character of the Violet Thunder sect, how could he not be able to kill a junior like Qin Wentian? Numerous experts were blasted out of Nine Thunder's constellation domain by Nine Thunder. After which, the lightning pool in the air erupted with an even more terrifying destructive might. The golden rock puppet was still using its supreme strength to slash apart Nine Thunder's constellation. Yet at this moment, Nine Thunder's eyes flickered with a frenzied light as he roared in rage, "Die for me!" As the sound of his voice faded, the violet lightning runes in the lightning pool erupted forth, akin to a volcano erupting. In an instant, the entire constellation erupted forth with a destructive might, capable of slaying even gods if they obstructed it. A vast domain was destroyed inch by inch as the destructive might enveloped the body of the golden rock puppet. Qin Wentian, who was in the golden rock puppet, stared in shock at this scene. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he controlled the puppet to slash out with the demon sword, causing a terrifying rift to appear in the air as the body of the golden rock puppet soared up into the skies. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Numerous terrifying shockwaves blasted into the golden rock puppet. Qin Wentian, who was inside, was also trembling violently. However, the golden rock still managed to rush out. Its perfect body was still in perfect condition, causing Nine Thunder to turn ashen. What material was this puppet made of? Even if the body isn't destroyed, the divine inscriptions within should have been destroyed. Nine Thunder's countenance was ice cold. Such a powerful attack, although the golden rock puppet was perfectly forged, it was impossible for the divine inscriptions to be as indestructible as the body. At this moment, the golden rock puppet floated in the air. Qin Wentian was in the midst of repairing the divine inscriptions. Although he had no way to inscribe such a powerful formation, it wasn't a problem for him to repair it. Even if he couldn't repair it to the same level as before, the power of the inscriptions wouldn't be too far off. The entire territory of the Battle Sword faction was in a state of chaos. The ground was already riddled with holes as numerous buildings were destroyed by the shockwaves. The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect had the absolute advantage in terms of numbers, while the Medicine Sovereign Valley still had to rely on the Golden Rock Puppet to fight. The experts of the Medicine Sovereign Valley had to surround the Golden Rock Puppet, using the attacks of the Golden Rock Puppet as cover. If not, once they broke away from the Golden Rock Puppet, they would be easily surrounded. That immortal-ranked Xuanwu puppet stood in the center, occasionally protecting the experts of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, causing the experts of the Royal Sacred Sect to grit their teeth in hatred. However, when their attacks landed on the Xuanwu puppet, it was like scratching an itch. They had no way to shake it. Although this gigantic immortal-ranked puppet didn't participate in the battle, it still gave the Royal Sacred Sect an immense sense of pressure. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at Nine Thunder from within the golden rock puppet. His silhouette flickered once more, transforming into a terrifying beam of golden light. Nine Thunder's countenance changed, turning ashen. He could still fight. Rapidly retreating, Nine Thunder actually avoided a head-on clash with the golden rock puppet. The golden rock puppet coldly glanced at him, its body arcing through the air in a beautiful arc as it slaughtered the other experts of the Violet Thunder sect. The demon's sword slashed through the air, no one could do anything to it. Gather together! Qin Wentian roared. The golden rock puppet slaughtered its way through, moving towards the puppet army. The experts of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley also started to gather. Although their numbers were small, their defenses and attacks were strong. Once they gathered together, the destructive might they exuded would be even more terrifying. They could become the vanguard of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley, slaughtering everything in their path. Very swiftly, the puppets and experts of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley gathered in the airspace above the Xuanwu tortoise. The experts of the Royal Sacred Sect also gathered in a frenzy. The army of puppets in the air had a might that could crush the heavens and earth. With a single glance, it was simply too terrifying. Get into formation. Vice Sect Leader Yen of the Core faction commanded. Instantly, the experts of the various factions started to get into formation. The Royal Sacred Sect had governed the world for tens of thousands of years, and there were all sorts of experts in the sect, including grandmasters in the field of formations. There were a few super powerful formations in the sect that could gather the strength of the entire sect to activate. Normally, they wouldn't even use it, but today, because of the heavy losses they suffered from the puppets of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley, they had no choice but to activate it. Careful, every faction in the Royal Sacred Sect has a combination formation that's extremely powerful. The leader of the Battle Sword Sect, Su Tsang, reminded as a look of wariness flashed in his eyes. As the sound of his voice faded, the various factions had already started to get into formation. The core faction of the Royal Sacred Sect took on the form of a dragon. A resplendent light flashed as the form of a nine-winged heavenly dragon appeared, incomparably malevolent. The experts of the Violet Thunder sect took on the form of a gigantic bat king. Lightning illuminated the area, and under the illumination of the boundless lightning, everyone could clearly see that it was a terrifying lightning bat dragon. The experts of the Great Earth sect took on the form of a demonic ox. When the terrifying light from the Great Earth sect radiated out, the gigantic Kuei ox appeared, shaking the heavens and earth. Just that stance alone was sufficient to shake the hearts of the spectators. Each faction had their own 10 ferocious beasts as the formation, floating in the air. At this moment, their numbers were even fewer compared to the puppets, but their stance was sufficient to cause the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Kuei Ox Formation. Zai Yan controlled the grand formation as he coldly snorted. Instantly, the Great Earth Sect's celestial phenomenon ascendants transformed into a gigantic Kuei Ox that rushed out in rage, howling through the air as boundless shadows of the Kuei Ox frenziedly rushed towards the experts of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley. Terrifying rumbling sounds echoed out, the puppets didn't move at all. But when the 10,000-meter Kuei Ox rushed over, the heaven-shaking and earth-shattering aura it exuded was sufficient to shatter the guts of people. The Xuanwu puppet moved. Its gigantic body soared up into the air, using its indestructible turtle shell to defend against the Kuei Ox's charge. A thunderous boom rang out as a fearsome shockwave swept through the air. The puppets and experts of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley were all forced back as a gigantic crater appeared on the ground. Just a single strike was sufficient to cause the hearts of everyone to tremble. The supreme formation formed by the Royal Sacred Sect was a true 1,000-man grand formation. How terrifying was its might! Even the immortal-ranked Xuanwu puppet felt numb from the impact. Chapter 730. Zai Yan's countenance turned cold when he saw this. He spoke again, Bat Dragon Formation. As soon as he finished speaking, the hideous and extremely terrifying lightning Bat Dragon Formation was activated. Incomparably dazzling lightning flashed wildly between the heavens and the earth. The ferocious lightning Bat Dragon swooped down, bringing with it a violent airflow that could destroy the heavens and the earth. Disciples of the battle sword faction, form the sky-splitting ferocious formation. Su Tsang roared. The sky-splitting ferocious formation was also one of the 10 ferocious grand formations, and its might was extremely strong. Back then, the royal sacred sect imparted formations to the various factions, and the one they were taught was none other than the sky-splitting ferocious formation. But before the formation was completed, the terrifying lightning bat dragon swooped down from the air. The wings of the bat dragon flickered with incomparably fearsome fluctuations of lightning. As the phoenix descended, the puppets instinctively rushed forward to defend against the onslaught of lightning. The Xuanwu puppet soared up into the air once more. After which, it opened its mouth and spat out a stream of coldness energy. A surge of immortal energy gushed forth, shooting towards the air, protecting this space. Kill them all. Zai Yan coldly snorted. As the sound of his voice faded, the 10 ferocious grand formation formed by the various great sects slammed down. The lightning bat dragon at the very front was enveloped by boundless lightning, shattering the cold nether immortal chi. However, the head of the lightning bat dragon showed signs of being sealed by a layer of frost. The gigantic tail of the Xuanwu turtle abruptly lashed out, bringing with it an incomparably violent might as it collided with the lightning bat dragon. Rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the Xuanwu turtle was forced back once more. The gigantic tail of the Xuanwu turtle cracked open from the impact. This super-powerful grand formation could even threaten the immortal-ranked puppets. At this moment, all the members of the 10 ferocious grand formations slammed down. The coral unicorn, scarlet flame golden swanee, ice armor horned devil dragon. That terrifying stance, that unparalleled might, caused people to feel stifled. Finally, the experts of the battle sword faction gathered into their formation. The horn of the sky-splitting ferocious lion was incomparably malevolent, resembling a peerlessly sharp sword. Puppets, protect us. Grand formation, kill the enemies. The Xuanwu turtle commanded. Wentian, go to the front of the grand formation and use the demon sword as a spear. All right. Qin Wentian nodded. After which, his silhouette flickered as he flew towards the sky-splitter horned horn formation. Boundless energy gushed forth. Su Tsang directly told him of the crux of the formation. Because only Qin Wentian himself was needed, Qin Wentian rapidly melded into it. An instant later, the demon sword became the core of the sky-splitter horned horn as boundless sword might converged upon it. At this instant, the demon sword gleamed with a terrifying demonic light, shooting up into the skies. Boom, boom, boom. In the air, the sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly. The 10 ferocious grand formation activated by the royal sacred sect clashed against the puppets. Other than the Xuanwu puppet which could withstand the impact, the other puppets were all flung through the air. Those controlling the puppets were all heavily injured, their divine inscriptions shattered. Kill! Qin Wentian's eyes were bloodshot. The sky-splitting centipede roared and galloped in the sky. Its sword stepped on the ground and charged toward the huge lightning bat dragon. Die! Those from the battle sword faction frenziedly channeled their boundless sword chi. Only when the same type of energy was condensed within the grand formation would they be able to unleash the strongest might. The lightning bat dragon formed by the Violet Thunder sect was formed by the power of thunder, the Kuei ox formed by the Great Earth sect was formed by the power of the earth, and the sky-splitting centipede formed by the battle sword faction was formed by the power of the sword. The horn of the sky-splitting centipede transformed into a gigantic sword that was over 100,000 meters long, slashing towards the lightning bat dragon. Piercing sounds rang out as the incomparably baleful horn actually pierced right through. Kill! Those from the battle sword faction had completely gone mad. Since the royal sacred sect wanted to annihilate them, they might as well annihilate them together. Chi, chi. The demon sword's horn pierced into the body of the lightning bat dragon, penetrating deeper and deeper. Many experts coughed out blood as they died instantly. And this time, an earth-shattering roar was heard. The Kuei ox and the red flame golden swanny beast attacked the sky-shattering Ao at the same time. The sky-shattering Ao swung its horn wildly, stabbing at the void. Die! The other grand formations all rushed over, causing the eyes of those from the battle sword sect to turn red. The Xuanwu puppet once again rushed over to protect them, causing rumbling sounds to reverberate through the air, causing cracks to appear on the sky-shattering turtle formation. Kill! Qin Wentian and Su Tsang controlled the grand formation. They controlled the demon sword and slashed it towards the Kuei ox ferocious formation. Those from the battle sword faction all went berserk when they saw this scene. Disregarding everything, they frenziedly channeled their strength and finally, a piercing sound rang out as the incomparably tyrannical defense was slashed apart. Rumble. But at the same time, the sky-shattering centipede also suffered from the destructive attacks of the other formations. Finally, the grand formation broke apart as countless experts from the Great Earth sect fell in different directions, suffering heavy casualties. Kill him. Zai Yan pointed his finger at the golden rock puppet. Momentarily, the ice armor horned devil dragon dashed towards Qin Wentian as a destructive aura gushed over, capable of crushing the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian was in the center of the grand formation. Even the puppet was unable to move due to the impact. Staring at the incoming ice armor horned devil dragon, his countenance stiffened. At this moment, a beautiful maiden clad in phoenix feathers walked out from another puppet. Her silhouette flickered as she walked to the side of the golden rock puppet. Inclining her head, she stared at the incoming grand formation as her phoenix feathers spread out, transforming into the shadow of a phoenix that enveloped both herself and the golden rock puppet. Qingcheng. Qin Wentian's countenance froze. Through the eyes of the golden rock, he saw a gentle smile on Qingcheng's face. It was as though as long as she was with him, there was nothing to be afraid of. Go! Qin Wentian roared. Staring at the terrifying grand formation descending from the skies, Qin Wentian's countenance turned pale. Finally, a thunderous boom rang out as the grand formation descended. Countless gazes turned their gazes over. That incomparably terrifying grand formation was sufficient to crush the petite body of Mo Qingcheng and the golden rock puppet into smithereens. Is she dead? The gazes of the crowd froze. The most dazzling heaven chosen of the royal sacred region, the purest and most beautiful maiden, a celestial couple, had died in the hands of the hegemon of the royal sacred sect just like that? The ice-armored horned devil dragon lifted its gigantic foot. The crowd only saw that the wings of the ice-armored horned devil dragon were still there, as though they had transformed into a sturdy barrier of light. Mo Qingcheng and the golden rock puppet were still inside, completely unharmed. In the golden rock puppet, Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. He froze for a moment as he stared at Mo Qingcheng with a teardrop in her eyes. It was as though she was prepared to die together with him. However, they didn't die. The phoenix feather robe protected them. This robe. Qin Wentian felt great waves of shock in his heart. Even the immortal-ranked black tortoise puppet would be forced back by such an attack. Yet, this robe actually protected them, not moving an inch. This is the wedding gift mother gave me. Tears flowed down Mo Qingcheng's eyes, she didn't know what to feel in her heart. Mother. Qin Wentian also felt a sense of sourness in his heart. This robe wasn't an ordinary robe, it was an immortal-ranked treasure. The ice armor horned devil dragon was enraged. It lifted its gigantic foot and stomped madly on the screen of light, as though it was trampling on Mo Qingcheng's back. The rumbling tremors from the impact gushed into the ice armor horned devil dragon. Qin Wentian's eyes turned bloodshot when he saw this scene. His eyes were incomparably malevolent, as though his entire body was burning with raging flames. Boundless resplendent runic light flashed as the candle flame in his body trembled violently. A dazzling halo appeared around him, resembling both immortal light and divine light. Immortal-ranked weapon? That's an immortal-ranked treasure. Was it given to Mo Qingcheng by the medicine sovereign? Countless experts in the air stared at the ground. The ice armor horned devil dragon was a grand formation formed by the experts of the Blood Devil Palace. Its attacks were extremely powerful, yet it couldn't even break a single piece of robe. This treasure was too terrifying. Greed appeared in the hearts of many from the royal sacred sect. If they had such a robe, how strong would their defense be? Crush her. Zai Yan commanded. The ice armor-horned devil dragon continued its frenzied attacks, as though it wanted to crush Mo Qingqing into pieces no matter what. Finally, Mo Qingqing coughed as a trace of blood seeped out of her mouth. That trembling might still managed to seep into the immortal rank treasure, injuring the fragile Mo Qingqing. Her strength was simply too weak, just a trace of the trembling might was enough to injure her. Qin Wendian chanted an ancient incantation. Within the golden rock, boundless immortal light radiated from his body, unceasingly flashing. Droplets of fresh blood flowed down the claws of the golden rock, seeping into the demon's sword. Boundless runic light danced within the demon's sword, causing it to emit clanking sounds as it trembled violently. The demon's sword trembled louder and louder, before abruptly shrinking in size. With a swoosh, it entered the body of the golden rock puppet, landing on Qin Wendian's palm. Qin Wendian brandished the demon's sword and slashed it towards the golden rock puppet. That invincible golden rock puppet was actually sliced apart as Qin Wendian walked out from within. The demon's sword trembled violently, as though it wanted to break through the heavens. Qingqing, let me out. Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared at the air, his countenance cold. Mo Qingqing started. The demon's sword transformed into a resplendent screen of light, enveloping Qin Wendian within. The boundless runic light illuminated Qin Wendian, making him look like an immortal. This halo of light was actually somewhat similar to the halo of light radiating from the medicine sovereign and sacred emperor earlier. With an intention of her will, Mo Qingqing let Qin Wendian out. The demon's sword instantly expanded to 1,000 meters in length, emitting a heaven-shaking roar. Boundless divine light circulated around the sword, as though it had a life of its own. You still dare to come out? Die! The ice armor-horned devil dragon lunged towards Qin Wendian, only to see Qin Wendian abruptly slashing out with the demon's sword in his hand. With a piercing sound, the demon's sword sliced through the body of the ice armor-horned devil dragon like a hot knife through butter, directly splitting it into two. Chapter 731. The ice armor-horned devil dragon formation was formed by experts from the Blood Devil Palace. Its attack power was extremely tyrannical, and even when facing against the immortal ranked Xuanwu puppet, it wouldn't be at a disadvantage. But at this moment, it was actually cleaved apart by the demon's sword. This sudden scene shocked everyone. There were still a few other fearsome formations in the air, and each of them had over 1,000 experts within them. Their gazes were all fixed on this scene as shock filled their hearts. Mo Qingqing used her phoenix robes to defend against the frenzied trampling of the ice armor-horned devil dragon. As for Qin Wendian, who walked out from the Blood Devil Palace, he used his sword to cleave the ice armor-horned devil dragon apart. This couple had once again shocked everyone. That demon's sword. The gazes of the crowd stared at the gigantic demon's sword that was a few thousand meters long. Resplendent runic lights circulated around the body of the demon's sword, resembling ancient characters that exuded a simple and unadorned aura. What are those runes? I don't understand them at all. Zai Yan stared at the demon's sword. Being able to unleash such a terrifying might, it clearly didn't belong to Qin Wendian himself. In that case, it could only be the power of the demon's sword. It was as though the demon's sword had been awakened, unleashing a heaven-shaking might. Numerous ancient runes, I wonder where they belong to. The hearts of the crowd trembled. The runes on the body of the demon's sword were like immortal talismans, illuminating the heavens and earth, activating the unexcelled might of the demon's sword. The ice armor-horned devil dragon formation was shattered, and the group of people within the formation were all killed. There were also many who were killed by the sword qi. The number of casualties was even more tragic than when the Violet Thunder sect formed the lightning bat dragons. Less than 1/5 of those who survived were left alive. Corpses littered the ground below, and the ground of the battle sword faction continued to split apart, resembling a natural graveyard, directly burying the corpses within. This battle was simply too intense. Up till now, 3 fearsome formations of the royal sacred sect had been destroyed. The lightning bat dragons formed by the experts of the Violet Thunder sect, the ice-armored devil dragons formed by the Blood Devil Palace, and the Kuei Ox Grand formation formed by the experts of the Great Earth sect. The number of people who died in this battle far surpassed any other battles the royal sacred sect had ever fought in the royal sacred region. This battle would definitely be recorded in the history of the royal sacred region. Although the casualties on the side of the Medicine Sovereign Valley's side were lesser, they were similarly in a miserable state. After all, their strength was much weaker compared to the rest. They only had experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the Battle Sword faction, and the Battle Sword faction. Right now, many of the puppets had been destroyed, and the experts from the Battle Sword faction had also suffered heavy casualties due to the destruction of their formation. Naturally, the royal sacred sect didn't expect that this battle would end so tragically. Initially, they thought that they would be able to destroy their opponents with ease. What was even more terrifying was that this battle had yet to end. Qin Wentian, whose entire body was bathed in immortal light as resplendent runes circulated around him, as well as the dazzling demon sword, seemed to have fused together as one. Inclining his head, he stared at the experts from the royal sacred sect. Qin Wentian's gaze seemed to be able to incinerate the souls of his opponents, as though wanting to split apart the heavens with a single sword strike. Bzz. The demon sword danced in the air. Qin Wentian roared in rage as he lifted the demon sword high up and abruptly cleaved downwards. Those lucky survivors of the Blood Devil Palace all turned pale. Qin Wentian didn't intend to spare their lives, he wanted their lives. Kill. A terrifying killing intent flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Earlier, the experts of the Blood Devil Palace transformed into ice-horned devil dragons that trampled on Mo Qingqing unceasingly. Now, he wanted to wipe out all of them. An incomparably deep crevice appeared in the ground. The experts of the Blood Devil Palace were instantly torn apart the moment they came into contact with the sword light that was imbued with runic inscriptions. After this sword strike, not even a tenth of them survived. The upper echelons of the Blood Devil Palace of the Royal Sacred Sect were all annihilated. It was too tragic. Back then, the Pill Emperor Hall was destroyed by Qin Wentian wielding the demon sword. The Blood Devil Palace dared to treat Mo Qingqing in such a manner, yet in the blink of an eye, they were annihilated. Their situation was even more miserable compared to the Pill Emperor Hall back then. For this grudge, Qin Wentian had already taken revenge on the spot. Bzz. Demonic chi gushed forth as the demon sword was lifted up once more. Qin Wentian spat out the word kill, causing despair to fill the hearts of those from the Blood Devil Palace. Qin Wentian still wanted to kill them all. Did he want to kill them all? Still not acting. Some of the surviving experts from the Blood Devil Palace inclined their heads and stared at Zai Yan and the others in the air. Those fearsome formations hadn't been broken yet, they were actually standing there in a daze, watching them die. Should they act? At this moment, who would dare to touch the sharpness of the demon sword? Although the power of the demon sword has been activated, it's definitely only for a short period of time. If we attack together and kill Qin Wentian, the demon sword would be a dead object. Zai Yan's eyes flickered with trepidation, as well as greed. This demon sword was definitely an immortal rank divine weapon, or maybe even higher. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the sky. After which, he soared up into the air, and at this moment, the demon sword didn't seem so heavy anymore. With the demon sword in his hands, he soared up into the air, exuding an aura that caused even the heavens and earth to lose their color. Those fearsome formations were all staring at Qin Wentian with trepidation. Zai Yan and the others from the core faction of the Royal Sacred Sect had also formed their own formations, yet they were still ordered to act. Although they belonged to the Royal Sacred Sect, they weren't fools. For those who weren't from the core faction, the Royal Sacred Sect wouldn't feel any heartache no matter how many of them died. In the eyes of these people, only the members of the core faction represented the true Royal Sacred Sect. As for the 9 great sects and the 2 empires, they could all be replaced. Regardless of the Great Earth sect or the Battle Sword sect, they only needed to announce this to the world and there would be other powers to replace them. Hence, none of them dared to act recklessly. Bzz. At this moment, Qin Wentian, who was wielding the demon's sword, increased his speed as he rushed towards the experts from the core faction. Retreat. Shang Ying was extremely cautious, he gave the order to retreat first. But after they formed their formations, their attacks and defenses were all extremely strong, but their speed was actually weaker. Their tails were too big, and it was hard to control them. The demon's sword slashed over, the sword light pierced through the air, slashing downwards. Shang Ying howled in rage as the strongest attack of the formation blasted towards the demon's sword. But under the might of that supreme runic light, all attacks were useless. Shang Ying explosively retreated, directly escaping from the formation. The sword slashed down, slashing into the formation, destroying everything. Under this strike, it was unknown how many experts from the core faction of Grand Shang died. Qin Wentian rushed up once more, wanting to continue his slaughter. Disperse the formation, retreat separately. When his energy is depleted, we will kill our way back. Zai Yan also knew that there was nothing he could do when he saw this scene. He could only temporarily evade Qin Wentian's attacks. Qin Wentian definitely wouldn't be able to maintain his berserk state for too long. As the sound of Zai Yan's voice faded, the formation instantly dispersed. All the experts fled, evading Qin Wentian's attacks. After all, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was one of the weaker ones and his speed wasn't fast. It was impossible for him to catch up to these people one by one. He halted in the air and brandished the demon's sword once more, slashing out at the fleeing figures in all directions. Some of the more unlucky ones were directly slain in midair. Very swiftly, the experts of the Royal Sacred Sect had all fled, leaving behind only those who were heavily injured. Such a bizarre scene caused those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and the Battle Sword faction to be dumbfounded. They stared at the silhouette of the young man wielding the demon's sword in the air. The eyes of the old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect, Su Tsang, didn't move. He simply stared at the majestic back view of the white-robed young man. When he was young, that silhouette already had the ability to support the heavens and earth. Brat, you will definitely surpass all the geniuses of the Royal Sacred Region, reaching a height unreachable by the predecessors. The Royal Sacred Sect is merely a stepping stone on your path of growth. I'm anticipating the day when you truly unleash your brilliance, the old ancestor of the Battle Sword sect mused. At this moment, he involuntarily recalled the first time he met Qin Wentian. At that time, he wanted to accept Qin Wentian as a disciple but was rejected. At that time, he treated Qin Wentian as an interesting junior. But now, he no longer treated Qin Wentian as a junior. There would definitely be a day when his brilliance would be even more dazzling than the stars in the night sky. At this moment, two terrifying auras descended from the air. Two Immortal Foundation experts stood in the air above them. The Sacred Emperor of the Royal Sacred Sect and the Medicine Sovereign stood in opposition. Although the two of them weren't looking at the situation below, they could clearly see that the countenance of the Sacred Emperor was extremely unsightly to behold. Old undying fellow, have you left the Royal Sacred Sect before? Where did your immortal arts come from? The Sacred Emperor coldly asked. He became an immortal earlier than the Medicine Sovereign and was naturally more familiar with the cultivation realms. However, he actually couldn't do anything to the Medicine Sovereign. The cultivation art of the Medicine Sovereign seemed to be even more powerful compared to the immortal arts he cultivated. What does this have to do with you? Although I can't do anything to you, you can't do anything to me as well. Seems like neither of us can kill the other. The Medicine Sovereign coldly spoke. This was also the reason why they restrained the Sacred Emperor from acting against those of a lower cultivation base. Because, both sides couldn't do anything to the other. Once the Medicine Sovereign killed those from the Royal Sacred Sect, the Sacred Emperor could also kill those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Let's end things here. The voice of the Sacred Emperor was cold. He glanced at Qin Wentian and those from the Battle Sword faction below as he continued, those from the Battle Sword faction betrayed the Royal Sacred Sect. All of you shall be annihilated. Your royal sacred sect already wants to annihilate us, yet you still don't want us to betray. Su Tsang stared at the sacred emperor, there was no longer much respect in his eyes. Just wait for your death. The sacred emperor coldly snorted. When he said the words "end things here," he already admitted defeat. Today, in the territory of the royal sacred sect, the Medicine's sovereign valley actually brought away those from the battle sword faction. This would definitely be recorded in the history of the royal sacred sect. Retreat. The Medicine's sovereign commanded. The experts from the Medicine's sovereign valley and the battle sword faction started to retreat. Qin Wentian glanced at the sacred emperor in the air before he slowly walked up to the back of the Xuanwu puppet. The runic light on the demon's sword vanished as it shrank in size and was kept by Qin Wentian. As for Qin Wentian, he closed his eyes and directly fell into a deep slumber. Wentian. Mo Qingchen came to the side of Qin Wentian. He's already fighting beyond his limits. The amount of energy he's using isn't something he should be able to unleash at his current level. Let him have a good sleep. The Medicine's sovereign walked to the side of Qin Wentian. Mo Qingchen nodded her head and didn't disturb Qin Wentian. She quietly sat down beside him as the experts from the royal sacred sect retreated. Very swiftly, the news of this battle spread through the entire sacred royal city, causing unprecedented waves of commotion. Chapter 732. In the sacred royal city, everyone was discussing about a single matter, the battle that happened in the royal sacred sect. The royal sacred sect used the betrayal of the battle sword faction as an excuse, wanting to completely eradicate the battle sword faction. The Medicine's sovereign valley came to the royal sacred sect's aid, challenging the hegemons of the world, resulting in a heaven-shaking battle. This battle happened in the headquarters of the royal sacred sect. It wasn't the same as the battle on the sacred battle platform where the sacred emperor fought against the Medicine sovereign. As for the other factions, they formed the 10 ferocious grand formation to deal with the experts from the Medicine's sovereign valley as well as the puppets. The Medicine's sovereign valley was unable to hold on any longer. Qin Wentian suddenly erupted with power. Brandishing the demon's sword in his hand, he transformed into a god of war, destroying the grand formation with a single slash, using the demon's sword to slaughter over 1,000 experts. Ultimately, the experts of the royal sacred sect chose to temporarily retreat. That Qin Wentian, who was rumored to have been abandoned by the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor because of his personality or talent, once again displayed his brilliance to the world. In the entire royal sacred region, there was no second person as dazzling as him. After the great battle ended, both sides suffered heavy casualties. The Medicine's sovereign valley finally brought the members of the battle sword faction away. Many people were discussing that from today onwards, the royal sacred sect could no longer be considered the hegemon of the royal sacred sect because the Medicine's sovereign valley was already strong enough to face the entire royal sacred sect head-on. The Medicine's sovereign wasn't at a disadvantage even when fighting against the sacred emperor. For a period of time, countless people in the royal sacred region headed towards the Medicine's sovereign valley, wanting to join them. However, at this moment, a piece of news circulated out from the royal sacred sect. The royal sacred sect recruited all the 9 great sects into the royal sacred region, and also announced to the world that if there were any other transcendent powers willing to join them, the royal sacred sect was willing to establish another faction, just like the 9 great sects back then, allowing them to become a part of the royal sacred sect. The moment this announcement was made, it instantly caused an uproar. Many transcendent powers were raring to go. This was a rare opportunity to become one of the hegemons of the royal sacred region. After the news from the royal sacred sect circulated out, the Medicine's sovereign valley also made an announcement to the world, inviting the transcendent powers of the royal sacred region to join them. The battle sword sect and the ancient Yi country gladly agreed to become part of the Medicine's sovereign valley. The conflict between the two powers was like fire and water, and as to who would be the one to control the hegemony of the royal sacred region, this became the question everyone in the royal sacred region was concerned about. This also seemed to confirm the old saying in the royal sacred region. If there was a day when someone could step into the legendary realm like the sacred emperor, they would instantly become a hegemon of a generation, able to dominate everything under the heavens. The reason why the Medicine Sovereign Valley dared to contend with the royal sacred sect for the position of hegemon was undoubtedly because the Medicine Sovereign had stepped into the same realm as the Sacred Emperor. If not, the Sacred Emperor alone would be able to suppress everything. After the Battle Sword Sect and Yi Country announced that they would be joining the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the Supreme D clan and the Qi clan of the western regions also announced that they would be joining the Royal Sacred Sect. However, the majority of the major powers still chose to observe from the sidelines, not daring to be drawn into this storm. If they were the slightest bit careless, they would be annihilated. It was better for them to peacefully develop themselves. If there was a day when a character like the Medicine Sovereign appeared among them, why would they still need to submit to the Royal Sacred Sect? However, just when everyone in the Royal Sacred Region thought that a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering war was about to erupt, the two major powers suddenly ceased their war, as though they were resting and recuperating. However, everyone understood that this was the calm before the storm. In the Medicine Sovereign Valley, in the midst of a lush green mountain peak, Qin Wentian quietly sat there, absorbing the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, as well as the energy from the constellations. During the battle that day, when he was in a frenzy, he activated the power of his bloodline, causing the mysterious energy within the demon sword to erupt forth with such overwhelming might. In front of Qin Wentian, the demon sword was stabbed into the mountain peak, humming unceasingly. On the body of the sword, there seemed to be a pair of lofty eyes staring at Qin Wentian, who had his eyes closed in meditation. Within that pair of lofty eyes, a hint of fear could be seen. He didn't expect that in a mere particle world, there would actually be someone whose bloodline could awaken the ancient runes in his body, causing him to be able to unleash a trace of his power. He abandoned himself and sank into the depths of the Reverend Sword Cliff, hating the fact that the heavens were too low. But wasn't it because there was no one in this particle world who could control him? No one could truly unleash his power. Hence, he could only sink into the depths of the Reverend Sword Cliff, turning into a sword that was sealed in dust and abandoned in this particle world. If it wasn't for the fact that the bloodline of the young man before him wasn't too bad, allowing him to awaken and pull him out, he would most probably have sunk into the depths of the Reverend Sword Cliff forever. But even after the sword was unsheathed, he still didn't have too much hope for Qin Wentian. It was only until a few days ago that Qin Wentian's bloodline actually activated his power. Seems like Qin Wentian had an extraordinary bloodline and wasn't someone from a particle world. At this moment, Qin Wentian's aura fluctuated. His eyelashes fluttered as he slowly opened his eyes. The pair of eyes on the demon sword vanished, leaving behind only a speck of light flickering on the body of the sword. The moment Qin Wentian opened his eyes, he saw the speck of light. With a wave of his hand, the demon sword flew over. Qin Wentian flicked his finger on the speck of light as the humming of a sword rang out. Only to hear Qin Wentian asking, "Where did you come from exactly? How can you be so powerful?" The demon sword remained silent, there was no reply. This demon sword seemed to have its own intelligence. Unless it wanted to speak, it wouldn't reply. However, I've said it before, I won't disgrace you. In the future, you can set your mind at ease and follow me as we roam the immortal realms. Qin Wentian held the demon sword in his hands before returning it to the sheath on his back. The humming of the sword gradually returned to silence. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he instantly left this place. An instant later, he entered a great hall in the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The Medicine Sovereign, the experts of the Battle Sword Sect, Yi Qingyun, and the others were all here. Upon seeing Qin Wentian entering, the Medicine Sovereign smiled, "You've awoken." Qin Wentian nodded as he stared at the others. This was the first time he met many of them. "Qin Wentian, this time around, the calamity of the Battle Sword Sect is all thanks to you." At this moment, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian as he smiled and nodded. "It's what I should do." Qin Wentian didn't mind it at all. Other than Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, all the Sword Sovereigns of the 9 mountains were here, including the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness who had a grudge with Qin Wentian. Right now, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had a complicated expression on her face. Back then, she invited Qin Wentian to be her disciple but was rejected by Qin Wentian. Hence, when she spoke to Qin Wentian, her tone was filled with arrogance. After that, she came to Yi to snatch the treasure in the body of the human emperor Yi Qingyun. At this moment, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness walked down from her seat and spoke to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, I'm sorry for what happened in the past. I, Plum Mountain, would like to apologize to you. I hope you don't mind. Qin Wentian was somewhat taken aback. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was incomparably proud and aloof. He didn't expect that she would actually apologize to him. I'm fine with it. The one you should apologize to is my foster father. Qin Wentian calmly spoke. Yi Qingyun replied, Wentian, Plum Mountain has already apologized to me. I won't mind the matters of the past anymore. Let's forget about this matter. As the human emperor of an ancient country, Yi Qingyun's bearing was extraordinary. This point had always made Qin Wentian admire him. Yes, foster father. Qin Wentian nodded. I only hope that Senior Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness won't think that foster father's strength is because of a mere treasure. I've also obtained a treasure in the immortal martial realm before, but I rarely borrowed its power. Just based on my constellation alone, the amplification effect of that treasure on my strength is already extremely limited. Bingyu's talent is actually very high, she basically doesn't need to borrow any external power and would definitely have some accomplishments in the future. You are right. The attitude of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had completely changed. She nodded her head, that last Bingyu is truly outstanding, stepping into the celestial phenomenon realm even earlier than Fei Xue. These two little fellows are actually quite compatible with each other. I wonder if they can become a pair. Plum Mountain, I will have to depend on you to act as a matchmaker. Help to put in some good words for my disciple Fei Xue, ha. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian laughed. He was also very happy to see the two geniuses of the Battle Sword sect getting together. Did the Royal Sacred Sect make any moves? At this moment, Qin Wentian asked. The Medicine Sovereign replied, recently, the Royal Sacred Sect has been very quiet. But the more quiet it is, the greater the pressure. I'm afraid once the Royal Sacred Sect attacks, even if the previous Sacred Emperor were to return, the result would be devastating. No one would be able to defend against them. As the sound of the Medicine Sovereign's voice faded, everyone quietened down as they felt an immense pressure bearing down on them. Although the previous battle was extremely tragic, their battle achievements were glorious as well. Faintly, they even had the strength to contend against the Royal Sacred Sect. But would they be so lucky in the next battle? Qin Wentian also felt an immense pressure. Right now, he could only hope that his incarnation, Di Tian, would be able to speed up the process of comprehending the Immortal Palace and gain the recognition of the Master of the Immortal Palace. If he could obtain that Immortal Palace, even if he couldn't defeat the Royal Sacred Sect, as long as they both entered the Immortal Palace, the Royal Sacred Sect wouldn't be able to do anything to them. Time flowed by day after day. During these days, although the Royal Sacred Sect was calm, they were still deploying their troops to strengthen their cultivation. Today, the upper echelons of the core faction all had expressions of excitement on their faces. The immortal sense of the previous Sacred Emperor had manifested, telling everyone that he would be arriving at the Royal Sacred Sect today. To the people of the Royal Sacred Sect, this was undoubtedly an exciting piece of news. As long as the previous Sacred Emperor arrived, they would destroy the Medicine Sovereign Valley with overwhelming might, letting the people of the Royal Sacred Region understand who was the true hegemon of this world. Qin Wentian, the person who was abandoned by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, was finally at death's door. Today, many of the upper echelons of the Royal Sacred Sect were dressed neatly as they quietly waited in the sect, preparing to welcome the arrival of the previous Sacred Emperor. Zai Xian, you have some understanding of the previous Sacred Emperor. How strong is he now? Someone asked Zai Xian. I'm not clear about the exact strength of the old ancestor. I only know that he joined a power in the immortal realms and this power far surpasses our Royal Sacred Sect. There are many experts there, and there are many existences on the same level as the old ancestor. Maybe this time around, when the old ancestor returns, he would bring his fellow sect members along with him. Zai Xian slowly spoke, causing the hearts of everyone to be filled with excitement. If that's the case, destroying the Medicine Sovereign Valley would be as easy as snapping a finger. And just as everyone was conversing, a resplendent light flashed in the air. Zai Xian inclined his head and stared at the sky as he spoke in a low voice, "They're here." As the sound of his voice faded, several figures descended from the sky, directly flying towards the direction of the royal sacred sect. Chapter 733. In the airspace above the royal sacred sect, a group of figures descended. The man in the lead had a dignified countenance and appeared to be in his 40s or 50s. This man was none other than the previous sacred emperor of the royal sacred sect. He wasn't the only one who came here. There were 7 other figures beside him, all of them exuding extraordinary auras. Their eyes gleamed with divine charm, and with a single glance, all of them exuded a powerful aura. This was especially so for the middle-aged man beside the old sacred emperor. His eyes were extremely terrifying, like a bottomless abyss. The other 6 looked even younger. Naturally, their actual age couldn't be judged from their appearance. As for how long they had cultivated for, the people of the royal sacred sect had no way to tell. Only when one stepped into a certain level of cultivation could one determine their age based on their skeletal structure. A silhouette flickered, the current sacred emperor Zai Xing arrived. He stared at the old sacred emperor and called out, "Father." So it turned out that the relationship between these 2 generations of sacred emperors was actually a pair of father and son. "We pay our respects to the old sacred emperor." Zai Yan and the others bowed. Many of them were descendants of the old sacred emperor, it was just that there was a gap of many generations between them. Hence, it was more appropriate to refer to him as the sacred emperor. The old sacred emperor Zai Jiang nodded to everyone. After which, he pointed to the middle-aged man with the terrifying gaze and introduced, "This is my junior brother Han from the same sect. You guys can refer to him as Immortal Han. We pay our respects to Immortal Han." Everyone bowed politely, feeling excited in their hearts. Since the old sacred emperor wanted them to refer to this man as Immortal Han, his cultivation base was definitely at the Immortal Foundation realm. The doomsday of the Medicine Sovereign Valley has arrived. As for the others, they are all my junior apprentice brothers and martial nephews. They came to the royal sacred region for a stroll, you guys have to treat them with respect. The old sacred emperor Zai Jiang commanded. Everyone nodded in acknowledgement. These people were all from the immortal realms. The old sacred emperor joined a power in the immortal realms and hasn't returned for a very long time. If it wasn't for the fact that the royal sacred sect was facing an unprecedented challenge, they wouldn't have alerted the old sacred emperor. After all, the old sacred emperor had already entered the immortal realms and naturally wouldn't interfere with the matters here. He would focus all his attention on pursuing greater strength. Immortal Han's abyss-like eyes stared at everyone. His will enveloped the entire royal sacred sect. At this instant, the people of the royal sacred sect all felt waves of pressure as their hearts trembled. This pressure originated from the core faction. Earlier, that descended from the sky, should be none other than the old sacred faction, the sacred emperor. Senior brother Zai, the particle world you control is truly a little weak. This sect can be considered the number 1 sect in this world, right? Most probably, there aren't many people with immortal roots here. It's very rare to see someone who could attract me. That Immortal Han faintly spoke. When he spoke, he gave off a sinister feeling, causing the people of the royal sacred sect to feel a sense of dread. Zai Jiang naturally knew that Qin Wentian had a unique perception ability. When he heard this, he silently mused that the current royal sacred sect wasn't that strong after all. There were very few people with outstanding talent, and none of them were able to enter the eyes of junior brother Han. Sacred Im. How strong sacred clan of them is. Sacred particle, sacred realm. Of saint. Sacred of the of. Where are the enemy powers you spoke of? Let's move out now and destroy them. Let's see if there are any who are worthy of our attention. Immortal Han spoke again. No rush, we came to this particle world from thousands of miles away. Since we are already in my sect, we should at least sit down and drink a cup or two. I will get them to prepare delicacies and prepare some beauties to accompany us. Cultivation in the sect is extremely boring, it's good to relax a little. As for the enemy powers, we can just destroy them after we have enough rest. Zaijiang laughed, he didn't really place the medicine Sovereign Valley in his eyes. Since he and his junior brother Han were here, destroying the medicine Sovereign Valley was as easy as lifting a finger. He would let the people of the royal sacred region see who the true hegemon of this region was. His junior brother Han's talent in cultivation was extremely good and was highly regarded in the sect. This time around, it was rare for him to accompany him to this particle world. As the host, he, Zaijiang, naturally had to build a good relationship with his junior brother Han and let him enjoy himself to his heart's content. Sure. Immortal Han nodded in agreement. Cultivation was indeed an extremely boring matter. In the immortal realms, although his status was high, he couldn't do as he pleased. Since it was rare for him to come out for a stroll, it was only right for him to relax and enjoy himself. When one was tired from cultivation, he naturally had to enjoy himself. The others naturally didn't have any objections. It was good for them to enjoy themselves. Go and prepare some delicacies and also some beauties. Junior brother Han's standards are extremely high. Not only must the beauties be beautiful, their talent must also be high as well. First, select some from the major powers in the sect. If there aren't any, bring them here from outside. Zaijiang instructed. Zai Yan and the others nodded, not daring to disobey. This was an immortal character after all. Since he came to their particle world, they naturally had to serve him well. I've already chosen a few beauties, I will bring them over now. Immortal Han's silhouette flickered as he vanished from sight, flying towards a certain direction. Zaijiang glanced at Immortal Han's departing back before he followed after him. The others all moved as well. The direction they were heading towards was none other than the forgotten immortal tower of the royal sacred sect. There were many beauties in the forgotten immortal tower, Immortal Han must have already chosen some of them. Very swiftly, in the territory of the forgotten immortal tower, the disciples all had bewildered looks on their faces when they saw the silhouettes descending from the air. An instant later, the leader of the forgotten immortal tower personally came out to welcome them. You, the three of you, serve me today. Come up here. Immortal Han pointed his finger at three extremely beautiful maidens whose talent was extremely high as well. These three maidens could be considered heaven's chosen in the royal sacred region and were usually extremely proud and arrogant. But now that this man was pointing at them, wanting them to serve him, their countenances instantly changed. Sacred Emperor. The leader of the forgotten immortal tower stared at the sacred emperor. This is the junior brother of my father, Immortal Han. It's their fortune to be able to serve Immortal Han. The three of you, come up here and serve Immortal Han well. The sacred emperor commanded. Momentarily, the beautiful countenances of the three maidens turned pale. And as expected, these three maidens were brought away. Other than them, the other maidens of the forgotten immortal tower were also brought away. That night, the banquet of the royal sacred sect was extremely grand, yet the atmosphere in the forgotten immortal tower was deathly silent. The maidens who were brought away were not only the most beautiful, their talent was also the most outstanding. On the second day, some of them returned, but they were crying as they returned with many injuries on their bodies. As for the three most outstanding maidens who were brought away by Immortal Han, they didn't return to the forgotten immortal tower. As for their ending, the people of the forgotten immortal tower couldn't bear to think about it. Although it was true that they were from the royal sacred sect and many of the maidens who were brought away had outstanding talent, in front of immortals, they were merely lambs, ants. They had no authority to speak. At noon, the sun hung high up in the sky. The royal sacred sect gathered the experts of the various factions and moved out in an imposing manner, heading towards the outskirts of the royal sacred sect. And at the instant they stepped out of the royal sacred sect, the people of the sacred royal city all felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. The royal sacred sect was finally making their move. They were currently heading towards the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The experts of the royal sacred sect didn't fly in the air but chose to fly at a low altitude instead. It was as though they wanted to announce to the world who was the true hegemon of this world. Everywhere they passed, a stifling pressure could be felt in the air, capable of crushing everything. Some of the weaker ones were even forced to lie flat on the ground, unable to stand up. Just the casual aura they exuded was enough to crush all living beings. It was too terrifying, it was as though doomsday had arrived. How powerful! Countless people inclined their heads, staring at the experts of the royal sacred sect flying in the direction of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Recently, everyone in the sacred royal city was discussing about the royal sacred sect and the Medicine Sovereign Valley, saying that the royal sacred sect was merely SOSO and that the Medicine Sovereign Valley was able to catch up to them. But only after personally witnessing the strength of the royal sacred sect did they truly understand how strong this hegemon was. How much strength was needed to shake them? Quickly head to the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Maybe, the battle that would decide the future of the royal sacred region will be decided by this. Numerous voices rang out in the sacred royal city as countless silhouettes rushed in the direction of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. The battle today might very well be the final battle between the two factions. In the Medicine Sovereign Valley, when the experts of the royal sacred sect were still far away, the Medicine Sovereign had already sensed the aura gushing over from the sky. He inclined his head and stared at the horizon as he spoke, "They're here." At this moment, the Medicine Sovereign's brows were furrowed, he didn't know how to resolve this calamity. If he really couldn't win, he could only bring Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing away. He believed that as long as he was still alive, the sacred emperor wouldn't dare to start a massacre. Michem. At this moment, the countenance of the Medicine Sovereign stiffened. He discovered that there was something wrong with the three powerful auras. At the same time, three tyrannical auras gushed towards the sacred emperor. Very swiftly, outside the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the experts of the royal sacred sect rushed over, standing in the air. The experts of the Medicine Sovereign Valley as well as their puppets were already floating in the air, staring at the experts who just arrived. Just this power. Immortal Han's perception swept over. The old sacred emperor Zaijiang nodded his head as he spoke. This Medicine Sovereign can be considered an extremely ancient character and has already stepped into the Immortal Foundation realm. Who would have thought that he would dare to oppose my royal sacred sect? Junior brother Han, how about leaving him to you? Not bad. Immortal Han nodded. After which, his gaze swept past Qin Wentian, Mo Qingqing, Lin Shuai, Lu Bingyu, Ji Feishue, and the others. Every single one of them was someone with extraordinary talent. There are a few fellows here whose auras are extremely good. Their potential might even be greater compared to those from your royal sacred sect. So what of it? If they meet junior brother Han, they are all dead men. Zaijiang laughed. Talent, potential. In the face of absolute strength, everything was a joke. In the immortal realms, there would be countless geniuses dying every day. For those geniuses who had yet to mature, if you didn't have any background, those major characters would accept you as a disciple if they found you pleasing to their eyes. If you dared to be arrogant, they might even kill you if they found you displeasing to their eyes. What else could you do? What use was there even if you were a genius? Immortal Han coldly laughed. After which, an immortal light radiated from him, expanding unceasingly. Within this immortal light, one could faintly see a terrifying blood-colored glow, instantly enveloping the entire space. Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all felt a stifling pressure bearing down on them. Sir, it's not good to deal with people of a lower cultivation base, right? The countenance of the Medicine Sovereign changed. Immortal Han glanced at him as a look of mockery appeared on his face. Are you joking with me? If I don't deal with those weaker than me, could it be that I should deal with those stronger than me? As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying energy erupted forth. That was a supremely powerful devouring energy. The group of maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley at the very front were directly sucked to the side of Immortal Han. Immortal Han stretched his hand out and placed it on their heads. His eyes flashed with a terrifying blood-colored light as the bodies of these maidens exploded, transforming into blood chi that was directly devoured by him. You! The medicine sovereign's countenance instantly turned ashen. He stared at Immortal Han. You have no principles at all. Are you not afraid that I will kill everyone from your royal sacred sect? If you have the capabilities, just kill them all. What has this got to do with me? Immortal Han coldly spoke. Would he even care about those from the royal sacred sect? Stepping out, Immortal Han rushed towards the crowd. His gaze was fixed on Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng. What a powerful blood chi, these two weren't bad at all. Chapter 734. In the Vermilion Bird Immortal Palace of the Royal Sacred Region, the other body of Qin Wentian, Di Tian, was still comprehending the diagram scroll. At this moment, runic light radiated from him, as though he wanted to fuse as one with the diagram. From afar, two silhouettes quietly stared at this scene. They were none other than the old man and young man who appeared in the Immortal Palace back then. Just when Di Tian was in a good state of comprehension, his aura suddenly turned chaotic as the golden runic light around him fluctuated violently. He was naturally very clear that his original body was in danger. Usually, he would discard all distracting thoughts and cultivate quietly, allowing him to control his emotions very well. But right now, the two sacred emperors of the royal sacred sect even brought along a powerful Immortal Han and started a massacre. Qin Wentian's other body could no longer maintain his composure and was extremely anxious. He hoped that he could comprehend the diagram as soon as possible. But the more anxious he was, the easier it was for him to make a mistake. Michem. The old man was somewhat taken aback. Why would there be a mistake at this moment? Qin Wentian's state of heart seemed to be fluctuating. At the celestial phenomenon realm, he should be able to control his state of heart very well. His control over his state of heart is actually so weak. The black-robed young man beside him coldly spoke with disdain. His comprehension abilities are already very high. In addition, this is only one of his bodies. However, this innate technique is truly marvelous. I can't tell which is the original body and which is the clone. It's like they are one entity. The old man spoke. After which, he continued, allow me to see what is happening to the other body. As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying wisp of consciousness expanded out of the celestial palace. In an instant, millions of scenes appeared in his mind. Cities, mountains, people, birds, and beasts were all in his consciousness. However, all of them were instantly filtered out by him. Bzz. Among the countless figures, there was a figure that was locked onto by his will. It was none other than Qin Wentian, who was currently in combat. In just an instant, the old man could see everything clearly. He couldn't help but to mumble in a low voice, so this is the case, no wonder his state of heart was fluctuating. Qin Wentian's clone used the pseudonym Di Tian and had been changing his appearance. It was all for the sake of preventing others from discovering that he was Qin Wentian. He would never have imagined that everything about him was seen through by this old man. The great Nirvana immortal art was so perfect, yet this old man could easily find his true self. Before Qin Wentian stepped into the celestial phenomenon realm, although he and Di Tian had two different bodies, their cultivation bases were the same. Even their bloodlines and auras were the same. This was the most monstrous aspect of the great Nirvana immortal art. But at the same time, as long as there were people with extremely powerful senses, they would be able to tell that they were the same person. An example was this old man. Back then when Qin Wentian and Di Tian appeared in the Immortal Palace, how could they hide from him? Just as well, let's test his state of heart. The old man silently mused as he stared at Di Tian. From the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Immortal Han rushed towards Qin Wentian. Both his palms stretched out as a terrifying devouring energy enveloped this entire space. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng were involuntarily drawn towards each other. Not only them, many experts in the surroundings had no way to resist that terrifying devouring energy. Bzzz. The silhouette of the medicine sovereign appeared as a fearsome energy enveloped Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng, helping them to block the pressure. However, the others weren't so lucky. When they were drawn to Immortal Han's side, they directly transformed into streams of blood qi and were devoured, dying extremely miserable deaths. Sacred Emperor, you guys actually invited such a person who has no principles. The medicine sovereign had an expression of rage on his face. With a thunderous boom, the entire world seemed to be engulfed in flames. Kill! Terrifying immortal flames blazed, targeting the experts of the royal sacred sect. The countenances of the experts from the royal sacred sect turned pale, many of them were directly incinerated into ashes. The 2 generations of sacred emperors didn't expect Immortal Han to do this. He truly had no reservations at all. No matter what, he should have killed the medicine sovereign first before dealing with these ant-like characters. But now, he had implicated the people of their royal sacred sect. All of you retreat further away. Zai Jiang shouted. The experts of the royal sacred sect retreated madly, so did those from the medicine sovereign valley. However, Zai Jiang only snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, countless streaks of golden lightning arced through the sky, reaping lives one after another. In just an instant, it was unknown how many experts had fallen. In the face of such an immortal foundation existence, experts of the lower levels were simply grass, unable to withstand a single strike. They could only wait to be slaughtered. You think you can block me? Immortal Han glanced at the medicine sovereign. After which, boundless blood-colored light enveloped the heavens and earth, transforming into strands of blood-colored threads that drilled into the bodies of many, resembling blood-colored sharp swords, reaping the lives of those from the medicine sovereign valley. Immortal Han devoured the blood and qi of those from the medicine sovereign valley, turning them into nourishment for his cultivation. The blood qi of these people is so weak, there wouldn't be much use even after I refine them. Immortal Han stared at Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng who were behind the medicine sovereign. These 2 shouldn't be too bad, especially for Qin Wentian. His sharp senses could sense an extremely strong blood qi from Qin Wentian. At this moment, a supreme sword qi abruptly descended upon this space, causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Immortal Han, the sacred emperor and the others all inclined their heads and stared at the sky. A swordsman descended from the sky. This swordsman was completely white, with white hair and a white beard, exuding a transcendent aura. His body exuded an overwhelming sharpness. Sir, who are you? The old sacred emperor Zai Jiang inclined his head and stared at the swordsman as he asked. Are the people of the battle sword sect here? The swordsman emotionlessly asked. Su Tsang from the battle sword sect trembled as he stared at the white-haired swordsman. His body trembled as he replied, Junior and the rest of us are from the battle sword sect. Why did you destroy my grass hut? The old man faintly asked. Su Tsang and the others from the battle sword sect all trembled. Grass hut. Was this the ancestor of the battle sword sect? Disciple Su Tsang was unfilial. The battle sword sect was threatened by others and had no choice but to relocate. If the battle sword sect was here, the grass hut would also be here. Now that the battle sword sect has left, I had no choice but to destroy the grass hut. Su Tsang knelt and respectfully spoke. He didn't expect that the ancestor of the battle sword sect was still alive and could sense the destruction of the grass hut. Sword Saintly Mubai. The old sacred emperor of the royal sacred sect, Zai Jiang, inclined his head and stared at the silhouette of the old man. This old man was someone from the same generation as him, yet he was actually still alive. People from the royal sacred sect. Li Mubai glanced at them as he coldly spoke. What grudge do you have against me? You actually want to destroy my faction? This is the War Immortal Palace's business. Scram. Immortal Han glanced at Li Mubai, his tone filled with arrogance. People from the War Immortal Palace. Li Mubai's expression froze as he coldly spoke. Just because you are from the War Immortal Palace, you think you can come to a particle world and kill as you wish? How shameless. Just with your strength, you dare to insult my War Immortal Palace? Immortal Han's countenance turned cold. Li Mubai coldly snorted. The War Immortal Palace was a major power in the immortal realms and was extremely powerful in certain regions. However, he didn't have a fixed residence and was always roaming around. The immortal realms were boundlessly vast. How could the War Immortal Palace chase after him? Bzz. Immortal Han stepped out, moving towards Qin Wendian once again. However, he only saw a beam of sword light descending from the sky. Li Mubai transformed into a beam of sword light, instantly appearing before Immortal Han. Immortal Han turned around as immortal light illuminated the sky from both of them. The blood chi from Immortal Han towered up into the sky, while Sword Saint Li Mubai's entire body shimmered with an indomitable might. Qin Wendian's countenance was ice-cold, incomparably enraged. He stared at Li Mubai's swordplay. Each and every one of his sword strikes seemed to be able to slice apart the void. When he attacked, his speed was as fast as lightning, and he couldn't tell how much power was contained within. But if he was struck by Li Mubai's attacks, he would most probably die without a burial. "Senior, receive my sword." Qin Wendian spoke. The power of his bloodline frenziedly gushed into the demon sword as it arced through the air, directly flying towards Li Mubai. Li Mubai glanced at it as the demon sword hummed softly. He praised, "This sword has a spirit, what a good sword." As the sound of his voice faded, boundless sword intent swirled around the demon sword as it directly landed in his palm. Bzz. Sword Saint Li Mubai directly rushed towards Immortal Han with a speed as fast as lightning, like a sword. His movements were so fast that no one could see how fast he was. The two of them clashed several times in an instant. Qin Wendian only saw the demon sword sweeping out before expanding in size, almost cleaving Immortal Han into two. But even so, it still managed to leave a bloody scar on his body. Immortal level experts are even more proficient in wielding the demon sword. Qin Wendian silently mused. He only saw Sword Saint Li Mubai forming sword imprints as the entire space around him started to tremble. It was as though countless sharp swords were about to break through the heavens. Everyone in a radius of a few hundred miles could feel the terrifying might of the swords. If Li Mubai wanted to kill them, it would be extremely easy. Die! As the sound of Li Mubai's voice faded, the 10,000 swords shot out in unison, aiming for Immortal Han. Immortal Han instantly retreated, and in the blink of an eye, he was already high up in the air. A terrifying shadow astral soul appeared behind Immortal Han, resembling a terrifying blood-colored devil that could devour the heavens and earth. Go! Li Mubai formed sword imprints on the demon sword as resplendent runic lights flashed. The demon sword pierced through the air, piercing through the towering shadow astral soul. Terrifying rumbling sounds rang out as Immortal Han screamed in agony. After which, he transformed into a beam of blood-colored light as he fled. The demon sword arced through the air before turning and flying back. The two generations of sacred emperors exchanged glances before their silhouettes flickered as they also retreated far away. The people from the royal sacred sect were so frightened that they fled for their lives when they saw this scene. The changes this time around were far beyond their imagination. Why did the founder of the Battle Sword sect appear here? Ancestor, should we pursue them? Su Tsang asked. No need, it doesn't matter if we kill them or not. In addition, I'm worried that the War Immortal Palace would interfere in the war of this particle world. Li Mubai frowned. If the War Immortal Palace interfered, it would undoubtedly be the end of the world. There was no way for them to defend against them. Even if he was stronger, it would be useless. Qin Wendian's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. The War Immortal Palace. He didn't expect that even the major powers of the immortal realms would be implicated in this war of the royal sacred region. Staring at the casualties of those from the Medicine's Sovereign Valley, Qin Wendian's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. The demon sword hummed lightly as it returned to Qin Wendian's side. Sword Saint Li Mubai slowly walked over, staring at Qin Wendian. This sword of yours isn't bad, it has a spirit. Sadly, Junior has no way to unleash its full strength. Qin Wendian sheathed the demon sword. This time around, Many thanks to Senior for acting. If not, the consequences would be unimaginably dire. Chapter 735. Li Mubai waved his hands. I didn't appear because of you, there's no need to thank me. But this sword has a very strong spirituality, I hope you will be able to control it. Don't make any mistakes. Many thanks for Senior's reminder. Qin Wentian was extremely respectful towards the old man in front of him. This was the ancestor of the battle sword sect. Ancestor, this young man's name is Qin Wentian. He's the one who broke the record of the battle sword hut. It's only because he had a grudge with the royal sacred sect that he chose to withdraw from the sect in order to avoid implicating the battle sword sect. Su Tsang walked over as he spoke to Li Mubai. This caused Li Mubai to cast a few more glances at Qin Wentian as he smiled, being able to break the record of the battle sword hut, not bad. Little brat, do you have a master? I already have a master, I can't join any other sect. Qin Wentian bowed. Li Mubai continued, what a pity, I thought it would be hard for you to find a master in this particle world and wanted to accept you as a disciple. Wentian, I'm sure your master wouldn't mind if you took me as your master. Su Tsang persuaded. Qin Wentian shook his head, it's a long story. The rules of the sect state that I'm not allowed to join any other sect. Su Tsang started, staring at the look in Qin Wentian's eyes. Bewilderment appeared in his heart. From what he knew, Qin Wentian shouldn't have a master in the royal sacred region. Why was this so? Could it be that the Dongxing Heaven Emperor accepted him as a disciple? But the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and the other immortal kings had clearly given up on Qin Wentian. This made him puzzled no matter how he thought about it. Don't worry, I'm already used to being lazy. Hence, I didn't join any other powers in the immortal realms and preferred to be a lone ranger. It's only because this fellow has fate with the battle sword sect that I had such thoughts. But since this brat already has a master, I won't worry about him anymore. Li Mubai waved his hands. Su Tsang nodded as he asked, Ancestor, why did you appear here? Also, the royal sacred sect has gone too far, why didn't you pursue them? Actually, I've already returned from my travels before, it's just that you guys don't know about this. I left a strand of my immortal sense in the grass hut, and when you guys destroyed the grass hut, I instantly knew about it. Hence, I knew that something must have happened to the battle sword sect. Hence, I came back to take a look, and as expected, there was no one in the battle sword sect at all. Hence, I came to the sacred royal city and didn't expect to see you guys fighting here. How coincidental. Li Mubai explained, as for why we didn't pursue the royal sacred sect, it's also to leave a path of retreat for you guys. I know of the War Immortal Palace, it's an extremely powerful power. Although it's considered ordinary in the immortal realms, it's more than sufficient to sweep through the entire royal sacred region. If that person has a high status in the War Immortal Palace, we can summon the experts from the War Immortal Palace and you guys can all flee separately. At that time, the royal sacred sect wouldn't be so crazy to hunt you guys down. And if the War Immortal Palace doesn't interfere in the matters of this particle world, it's the same to deal with the royal sacred sect later on. Ancestors' considerations are truly thorough. Su Tsang felt enlightened in his heart. Indeed, the ancestors' considerations were much more comprehensive. Medicine Sovereign, what do you think? Should we temporarily disperse them? If they meet people at our level, they are nothing but cannon fodder. After the situation is settled, it's the same for them to return. Li Mubai turned his gaze to the Medicine Sovereign as he spoke. The Medicine Sovereign muttered to himself for a moment before nodding his head, I'm responsible for today's matter. My considerations were lacking, I didn't expect Zai Jiang to join the War Immortal Palace and even brought the experts from the War Immortal Palace here. Those people from the War Immortal Palace are extremely vicious, directly starting a massacre, not even caring about the deaths of the experts from the Royal Sacred Sect. It's best if we disperse the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley first. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart when he heard the Medicine Sovereign's words. He glanced at the vast space around him. Although the battle had only started for an instant, the casualties were extremely heavy. Just like what Li Mubai said, in front of people at their level, those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were nothing but cannon fodder. They basically didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the battle. He had to avenge this grudge no matter what. As he thought of this, he clenched his fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. The involvement of the experts from the War Immortal Palace was something completely unexpected. Clean up the battlefield. For those who can be healed, don't be stingy with medicinal pills. After that, you guys temporarily disperse and observe the situation in the Royal Sacred Region. I believe that everything will be settled in a short period of time. The Medicine Sovereign stared at everyone as he slowly spoke. If the other party requested help from the War Immortal Palace, it wouldn't be long before they arrived. Let's go in and chat. The Medicine Sovereign spoke to Li Mubai after giving his instructions. The group of them then entered the depths of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Li Mubai, you've been in the Immortal Realms for so many years, how many immortal foundations have you established? On the ancient peak of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, the Medicine Sovereign, Li Mubai, Su Tsang, Qin Wentian, Mo Qingcheng and the other important characters were all present. The Medicine Sovereign asked Sword Saint Li Mubai. This was a topic regarding the legendary Immortal Foundation. Qin Wentian and the others all perked up their ears. How difficult? Establishing one's immortal foundation is simply too difficult. At this level, every breakthrough is even harder than ascending to immortality. Hence, in the immortal realms, there are supreme geniuses who became immortals within 100 years. But if one wants to break through to the immortal king realm, they would need at least a few thousand years. Those who reach the immortal king realm within 10,000 years are all supreme geniuses. But naturally, that realm is too far away from us. I'm already satisfied if I can establish one immortal foundation within 10,000 years. Li Mubai sighed. Up until now, I've only established a second-level immortal foundation. That expert from the War Immortal Palace is the same as me, his cultivation base is also at the second level. Immortals in the legends should be at the immortal foundation realm. Qin Wentian silently mused. Only by establishing one's immortal foundation could one become an immortal. I'm really looking forward to it. The immortal realms must be very fascinating. The eyes of the Medicine Sovereign flickered with intense anticipation. Fascinating, of course it's fascinating. Li Mubai stroked his beard as he continued, the immortal realms are boundless and boundless. Even if I were to spend my entire life there, I wouldn't be able to finish exploring the immortal realms. In the immortal realms, there are countless powers, immortal empires, sacred grounds, immortal estates, immortal sects, innumerable danger zones, and innumerable experts. That War Immortal Palace, don't think that they can dominate everything in this particle world. But in the perspective of the immortal realms, they are simply insignificant. Once, I spent thousands of years roaming the immortal realms, but I've only visited a small portion of the immortal realms. The Medicine Sovereign, Qin Wentian and the others sighed in their hearts. Was this the immortal realms? Naturally, although the immortal realms are fascinating, it's also extremely cruel. The strong are revered, survival of the fittest. If your strength is weak and you don't have any background, you better be more low profile and don't casually antagonize others. If not, you wouldn't even know how you died. You mustn't possess any powerful treasures or you might be killed. In fact, you mustn't even have a beautiful wife or children because you are weak and you won't be able to protect them. Li Mubai sighed. Hence, for those who are weak and have no background, they are the most miserable. Hence, the immortal realms are extremely cruel. Many stellar martial cultivators are slaves, controlled by others. Many beautiful females are even more miserable. Those major characters in the immortal realms basically wouldn't care about the thoughts of those with low statuses. Qin Wentian was deeply moved when he heard Li Mubai's words. He had personally seen the Dongxing Heaven Emperor and the other immortal kings before. Although those immortal kings all had smiles on their faces, when he was abandoned by the Dongxing Heaven Emperor, not a single one of them even glanced at him. Deep in their bones, they were extremely cold to the weak, even if you have outstanding talent. Didn't that expert from the War Immortal Palace who came with the Sacred Emperor also treat the lives of those from the Medicine's Sovereign Valley and the Royal Sacred Sect with disdain? Senior, given how cruel the immortal realms are, wouldn't it be very stifling? Qin Wendian curiously asked. No, compared to a particle world, I still prefer life in the immortal realms more. Li Mubai shook his head. I'm alone, I have no worries. I usually keep a low profile and wouldn't encounter people who want to kill me just because they don't like me. When one reaches a high cultivation realm, their temperament would naturally be extraordinary. Unless there's something that can tempt them, they wouldn't act so easily. Also, in the immortal realms, I can go on adventures every day, pursuing the path of the strong, the hot-blooded path of cultivation. I only hate that I'm too old and my talent isn't good enough. If not, I wouldn't be so low profile and would definitely contend against the geniuses of the immortal realms. Wentian, you don't know this. In the immortal realms, if your talent is good, there are simply too many temptations. Invitations from major powers, plundering all sorts of heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures, exploring the ruins left behind by supreme existences, all of these are extremely exciting. Fine wine, delicacies, everything you want, beauties like the clouds, throwing themselves into your arms. Ha ha ha. Li Mubai laughed carefreely. Just a glance was enough to tell that he was a carefree person. Sadly, his talent wasn't strong enough. In this particle world, his talent could be ranked at the very top or he wouldn't have been able to walk out of here. But in the immortal realms, he was simply too ordinary, an unremarkable member of the masses. From Li Mubai's words, Qin Wendian could sense his loneliness as well as his pursuits. Immortal realms. Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared at the sky. He was also filled with anticipation for the immortal realms. Were his parents people from the immortal realms? Also, her clan should be extraordinary even in the immortal realms. The Royal Sacred Sect's grand attack failed to take down the Medicine's Sovereign Valley. It was rumored that the ancestor of the Battle Sword sect had returned, allowing the Medicine's Sovereign Valley to avoid this calamity. This battle also caused the experts of the Medicine's Sovereign Valley to temporarily disperse. For the next period of time, the sacred royal city regained its former tranquility. However, the victor between the Royal Sacred Sect and the Medicine's Sovereign Valley had yet to be determined. The hearts of everyone were still hanging in suspense. The battle for the hegemon of the Sacred Royal Sect had yet to conclude. In the Vermilion Bird Immortal Palace, the other body of Qin Wendian, Di Tian, was still comprehending. From afar, an old man and a young man were still watching him. They were long used to it, they had waited for too long and finally, there was hope. The old man was filled with anticipation. At this moment, the golden picture scroll above Di Tian transformed into boundless runic light that entered Di Tian's body. Finally, Di Tian's eyes opened. He stood up and the golden picture scroll transformed into millions of runes, enveloping this entire space. After which, the runes revolved frenziedly as they entered Di Tian's body. When the light dissipated, Di Tian's eyes flashed with sharpness. That was clearly the gaze of Qin Wendian. Because, Di Tian was none other than Qin Wendian. Senior, is it enough? Di Tian stared at the old man as he asked. What's enough? The old man laughed. After passing the test, can I control the immortal palace? Di Tian asked. The old man laughed. Are you dreaming? You just passed the first test and you already want to obtain the inheritance and control the immortal palace? Di Tian's expression froze, extremely unsightly to behold. Your path is still long. This time around, you can be considered to have crossed the threshold, but it's still far from enough. As for roaming the immortal realms, leave it to your other body. As for you, I will be in charge of tempering you. The old man spoke, his words causing Di Tian's expression to stiffen as madness flashed in his eyes. He actually knew about this? This particle world is too small. From today onwards, you have already crossed the threshold. I will bring you to roam the various particle worlds. There are billions of particle worlds and some of them are extremely powerful, but there are also many that have extraordinary aspects. I will do my best to nurture you, allowing you to establish your immortal foundation within 100 years of age. At that time, you can be considered to have truly passed the test. The eyes of the old man were incomparably deep, resembling a world of stars. He stared at Tian as he spoke. From today onwards, your astral souls can only be sealing-type astral souls. You will walk towards the path of the great Tao of sealing, walking towards the peak. The power of sealing is the strongest ability in the world, there are no other abilities that can compare to it. Tian's eyes flashed, he didn't know who this old man was. He himself cultivated in the Tao of sealing and naturally, he would revere it. As for the so-called strongest, he didn't believe it at all. Are you doubting my words? The old man laughed. Is the power of space powerful? Is the power of time powerful? Is the power of light powerful? All of them are extremely powerful. However, when you cultivate the sealing art to the highest level, you will be able to engrave it. Sealing cultivation, sealing speed, sealing space, sealing time, sealing the world. Do you think that sealing is the strongest power? Chapter 736. Staring at the fanatical old man, Tian was somewhat speechless. Although there were differences in strength between different types of laws, for example spatial laws were clearly stronger than ordinary laws, and sealing was also considered one of the stronger types of laws, the true deciding factor was still the stellar martial cultivator. The stronger the cultivator, the stronger the attribute they could unleash. Tian had never doubted this point. It was just that this old man loved sealing, hence, he viewed sealing as the strongest type of energy. This sort of obsession was naturally beneficial to those who cultivated sealing. Because, he would wholeheartedly focus on this type of energy. Sealing could seal space and speed, it was indeed very powerful. But what if one cultivated spatial laws to the extreme? Could it be that one couldn't tear apart the seal and isolate it? If one cultivated speed to the extreme, before your seal was fully formed, your enemies would have already left the area of effect of the seal or appeared before you. How can you fight then? The myriad of existences in the world had their own counter to each other. It was the same for energy as well. The so-called strong and weak were all relative. There was no absolute strongest attribute. At the very least, you have to tell me what grade the inheritance of this immortal palace is at. After that, I will choose if I want to focus all my energy on it. Tian stared at the old man, interrupting his fanaticism. Brat, you are truly brazen. The old man stared at Tian. Fine, I will tell you. That day in the air, those immortal kings who didn't even bother to glance at you, including the Dongxing Heaven Emperor who abandoned you, as long as you can obtain the complete inheritance, you will be able to trample all of them beneath your feet. Are you satisfied with this answer? Tian started. Seems like this old fellow truly understood him very well. He was Qin Wentian, there was no way he could hide it from the old man. He even knew about the matters regarding the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. Seems like this old fellow was also a major character. Since you know everything, I once rejected the Dongxing Heaven Emperor's offer to take me as a disciple because he wanted me to only have freedom once every 1,000 years. I can allow you to temper me, and I can also do my best to cultivate my sealing arts. However, you cannot restrict my freedom. Just like now, I've encountered some trouble. Tian spoke. You should know that this isn't the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor accepting a disciple. Even if the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor accepts you as his disciple, it still depends on your good fortune and whether the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor likes you or not. Those supreme existences have countless disciples, how much time and effort would they have to invest in you? These are all unknowns. Perhaps you're just a marginal person, but now, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to let you obtain the complete inheritance. Do you know how many people dream of this? You actually dare to negotiate with me? The old man cursed in a low voice. Tian naturally understood this logic. If he was accepted as a disciple of the Eastern Sage Immortal Emperor, it still depended on his mood and Dongxing Ting's expression. In fact, the Dongxing Heaven Emperor was willing to hand him over to his subordinate Deep Flame. Naturally, this couldn't be compared to the inheritance before his eyes. However, he still had to fight for it. Regardless of those buried immortals or immortals outside, don't look at how pitiful they are. Which one of them isn't here for the sake of seizing the inheritance? The old man continued, however, I'm not that unreasonable. Your other body has encountered some trouble, I'll give you a chance. As long as you can undo the seals on those people, you can do whatever you want with them. In addition, I'll give you a month's time to settle this matter. As for the future, you still have to listen to my arrangements. I won't harm you, everything I'm doing is for you to grow stronger, allowing you to obtain the complete inheritance. If I want to kill you, this old man can turn you into meat paste with a single slap. Di Tian's lips twitched, he didn't doubt this point at all. In that case, can I leave now? Di Tian asked. Wait a minute, although you and your other body have cultivated different types of energy and your aura has changed, you are still the same person after all. Disguising techniques can't fool supreme existences. Since you don't want to expose your true appearance, don't cause unnecessary trouble. Wear this mask, it can block all probing. The old man waved his hand as a bronze mask flew towards Di Tian. Many thanks, Senior. Di Tian thanked. This old man wasn't as unreasonable as the Dongxing Heaven Emperor. The Dongxing Heaven Emperor completely didn't give him enough respect at all. After receiving the mask, a cold and sinister aura gushed forth from within. As he wore the mask, the skin on his face was pierced through as a mysterious energy fused with his face. At this moment, Di Tian, who was wearing the bronze mask, exuded an extremely cold aura, giving off a terrifying feeling to those who looked at him. Wear this armor well. Don't get killed the moment you enter the sect. With your current strength, it's still not enough. The old man waved his hands again as a set of bronze armor appeared. Di Tian directly donned it, and the coldness of the metal caused everyone to feel a sense of sharpness. At this moment, Di Tian gave off an extremely strong visual impact, he was mysterious and unfathomable. Most probably, other than the old man, no one would be able to recognize him. Seems like Senior is still very concerned about this junior. Di Tian laughed. After that, he turned and sped away. The old man stared at his back as a strange light flashed in his eyes. After that, he grinned, it took me so many years to find a suitable successor. How can I not care? Although you comprehended the picture scroll with a single thought, it's not a big deal. Are you so satisfied? The cold-looking young man at the side asked. Ha, you don't understand. The old man laughed and didn't say anything more. Di Tian's figure flickered as he sped towards the place where the immortals were at. When he arrived, all the immortals stared at him. At this moment, Di Tian was clad in armor and had a bronze mask on his face. His entire body radiated a cold aura, it was basically impossible to recognize him. Seniors, it's me. With an intention of his will, the mask on Di Tian's face directly vanished, fusing into his skin, revealing his face. Naturally, this was the face he had disguised. Di Tian, have you obtained the inheritance? A skinny old man asked. I haven't fully obtained it yet. Let me take a look at the seals on the bodies of seniors. Di Tian's eyes abruptly changed. Countless pupils stacked on top of each other, resembling the eyes of the abyss as they spun frenziedly. He stared at the bodies of the immortals and in an instant, he could clearly see the terrifying diagrams that were sealed within the bodies of the immortals. The complete diagrams were like chains, extremely terrifying. Sealing immortals, I have no way to do it. Di Tian was stunned by the diagram. Although he had already comprehended the picture scroll, he still had no way to inscribe such a seal. Can it be undone? Many silhouettes flashed as the immortals came before Di Tian, their gazes filled with anticipation. Yes. A dazzling light flashed in Di Tian's eyes. Although he couldn't inscribe it, he could destroy it. As long as he destroyed the crucial part of the seal, with the strength of the immortals themselves, they would be able to break through the restraints of the seal. As the sound of his voice faded, the gazes of everyone froze. Numerous familiar faces stared at Tian, as though they had forgotten how to think. They have been trapped here for far too long, their strength was sealed and they had no way to cultivate. Now that they heard Tian saying that he could unseal the seal, many of them were momentarily dazed. "Will that fellow spare us?" someone worriedly asked. "Don't worry, Senior has already said that as long as I can undo the seal, I can do whatever I want to you all. I will allow you all to leave the Immortal Palace." Tian smiled. "Good, good." An old man clenched his fists tightly as he nodded his head repeatedly. Finally, could they leave this place? Tian, shall we begin? Someone asked in a trembling voice. I shall undo the seals for all of you now. These seals are all very powerful, I can only destroy them. I will allow all of you to forcefully break them apart. Tian spoke. Which senior wants to try first? Let me. Someone spoke. Okay. Tian nodded. Boundless runic light abruptly radiated from his body as his eyes turned even more terrifying. He slammed his palms onto the immortal as the runes directly entered his body. The sealing diagram that had been hidden for so long abruptly appeared. That immortal radiated an intense light, causing even he to be stunned. Was this the power of the seal hidden within his body? At this moment, he could finally sense it clearly. Break! Tian coldly snorted. The runic light frenziedly gushed into the diagram, breaking it apart. After that, he turned to that immortal and spoke, "Senior, feel your strength and see if you can break the seal." "Immortal foundation, my immortal foundation." That immortal's countenance abruptly turned red. He soared up into the air as a boundless light radiated from him. This was the halo of light unique to immortal foundation experts. "Finally, I'm free." That immortal roared in rage. With a thunderous boom, the seal in his body was completely broken apart as an immortal aura gushed forth, permeating this entire space. "It's broken." The bodies of many people trembled, all of them were incomparably agitated. For those who were sealed in certain places and couldn't move, expressions of excitement could be seen on their faces. An example was the red-haired old man whom Qin Wentian met when he first stepped into this place. His eyes were slightly moist. Tian did it, he didn't disappoint him at all. "Seniors, don't be anxious. I will help all of you break the seal one by one." Tian couldn't help but to smile when he saw so many people calling out to him. "Ha, look at how anxious you guys are, good, good. Everyone just wait patiently. Tian, you can do it one by one." Someone laughed uproariously. However, the agitation on his face couldn't be masked. Evidently, he wasn't as calm as he was when he spoke. After being sealed for so long, it was simply too unbearable. Now, it was finally the end. They could finally break the seal and head to the immortal realms. "My son, you are already an old man now, right?" An old man's eyes turned red. "Little E, have you been well?" There was someone who missed his wife, as all sorts of emotions welled up in his heart. Was this nightmare finally going to end? Back then, they shouldn't have been so greedy for the inheritance.